Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Byju's Exam Prep IAS. This is Sham Kagud here. Now, before I start the discussion for the day, if there is no issue with the sound, please give me a thumbs up. Done. Let's start. So, yesterday, what we have covered? Yesterday, we have discussed concept of investment models. Yes or no? Investment models. In investment models, what we have discussed? First one is FDI. What is FDI? Foreign direct investment, where foreign money, that is foreign companies, will bring the money in India and invest in India, specifically in, let's say, assets. For example, foreign company will bring money and set up a manufacturing facility. Foreign company will bring money and set up a service company in India. They will enter into a joint venture with an Indian company, etc. There can be different ways in which the investment can be done under the concept of FDI. Then we have discussed, the FPI. What is FPI? Foreign portfolio investment. In foreign portfolio investment, what is the basic idea? Under this, the foreign investment will come in the stock market, that is specifically in the financial instruments, such as purchasing shares, purchasing bonds from the market. Right? That is basically idea for FPI. Then we have discussed the Arvind Mayram Committee report. Arvind Mayram Committee report. Arvind Mayram Committee report simply says that if a foreign company makes an investment in an unlisted company, by default take it as FDI. If a foreign company makes an investment and purchases up to 10%, then it will be FPI. But if they purchase less than 10% with a promise that in the next 1 year it will increase to more than 10%, then it will be considered as FDI. That is basically the difference between FDI, FPI in a listed, unlisted company. Then apart from this, we have discussed what is the concept of ADR, GDR, right? That is American Deposit Receipts, Global Deposit Receipts, and Indian Deposit Receipts. Double Taxation Avoidance Agreements, right? That is DTA, Double Taxation Avoidance Agreement. In Double Taxation Avoidance Agreement, generally what we find is two countries will come together, sign an agreement, and in this agreement, both of the countries will distribute, right? They will distribute the taxation powers between themselves. That is a Double Taxation Avoidance Agreement. After that, we have discussed concept of special economic zones. Yes or no? Yes, easy. Government, in order to promote, let's say, the promotion, in order to promote the production as well as exports of the goods from India, we implemented a concept of Special Economic Zones Act of 2005. And under the Special Economic Zones Act, will identify, that is, government will identify certain region, will classify the region, notify the region as a special economic zone, and the conditions which are applicable to the units under the special economic zones will be a lot relaxed. Lot of relaxations are provided. For example, taxation relaxations are provided, right? Let's say labor laws, some of the labor laws are relaxed, right? These kind of relaxations are provided in order to promote manufacturing and export of goods and services from special economic zones. SEZs are developed by the private sector. All the facilities in the SEZs are provided by the private sector, that is the developer, the private developing company itself, right? These are some of the features of SEZ. Then what has been the performance of SEZ? How many have been approved? How many have been established? Then we have discussed the concept of the issues related to special economic zones. And in addition to that, we have discussed also the committee recommendation, Baba Kalyani committee recommendation. Then we have discussed NIMZ, just the model, because I hope remember this. As of now, there are no operational NIMZs in India. More than 20 have been approved, but none of them are operational. So NIMZ will be developed as an industrial township. NIMZs will be promoted by the central government, right? And for operation of the NIMZ, the government is going to set up a special purpose vehicle for it. Then NIMZs will also hold or let's say house multiple SEZs. They'll be involved in the exports. They'll be involved in producing and selling in the domestic market. They will also have infrastructure facilities in order to provide skilling to the workers, etc. That's a model of NIMZ. Now we are supposed to start with PPP, public-private partnership. But before that, have you read these articles in today's Hindu newspaper? Please tell me. Have you people read these two articles in Hindu newspaper? In fact, in Hindu today, 4 articles were important. One was regarding WPI. Have you read regarding WPI? Again, don't buy hard numbers. Don't buy hard numbers, right? You don't have to buy hard numbers because WPI again next month will change. But WP article appeared in Hindu newspaper and most of the other newspapers as well. Right. Apart from that, there was one article regarding Finance Commission. Please read that as well. But from current affairs perspective, this is important as well as this is important. Right. I had mentioned that Government of India has imposed wheat stocks in India, etc. The article is regarding that. And trust me, if you read the article, none of it we have actually skipped in the classroom. Read the article, automatically you'll understand, right? Why they are imposing, right? What is happening, right? The agriculture sector, etc., etc. Everything we have discussed in the classroom. Only thing is that you need to apply, right, in the current affairs. In addition to that, Eurozone is in recession. What is recession? Do you remember? What is recession? And there are technical terms here and nothing new for you. For example, consumption expenditure, government expenditure, etc., etc. All the terms have been provided. Please go through that. Okay, done. So this is one more article that was there in the Hindu newspaper. In Indian Express, I found 2 articles which are very important. One, there is a sharp decline as per the World Bank report. There is expected to be a sharp decline in the inflow of remittances that India is receiving. Have you come across the term remittances? Let me know. Anywhere that we have discussed in the last 20 plus classes, have you come across the term remittances? Where? Under the concept of balance of payments. Yes or no? Balance of payments. And within balance of payments, one of the components in the current account was remittances. And I hope, right, let me know whether I've told this or not. I'm pretty sure I've told you this. India is the largest recipient of remittances. Yes or no? India is the largest recipient in the global market of remittances. In fact, I told you remittances can come in the form of, right, gifts. It can come in the form of payment to your relatives, etc., etc. The article is regarding that. And within this article, there is one report that has been mentioned. Again, this is not a first time that the report has been published. This report is published annually by the World Bank. If you read the article, you'll realize that there is one report that has been published by World Bank, Migration and Development Brief. Many of you keep on asking me, no, sir, right, how do we understand what kind of questions can be asked in UPSC? What kind of reports can be questioned in the UPSC preliminary examination or mains examination? Please have a look at this. This is a report which was published, right, by the World Bank. In today's newspaper, the Mint newspaper has carried an article on this. Business Standard has carried an article on this. Indian Express has carried an article on this. So automatically it becomes relevant, important for your civil services examination. Right. So again, related to that, whatever information is there, do not by heart everything. Just go through certain important points. That is, last year the inflow of remittances was very, very high. But now there is going to be a hike, but the inflow of remittances is going to change marginally by just 0.2%. That has been mentioned in the report. But apart from this, another article in Indian Express I found to be very much relevant for your exams. Very important, very relevant, and we have discussed this as well. Right? That is, do you remember the concept of warehousing? Did we discuss warehousing in India? Let me know. Where? I'll tell you. Agriculture sector. In agriculture sector, there is a separate heading, warehousing only. And while I was discussing warehousing, I told you that Government of India very recently has proposed an initiative wherein government says we are going to expand warehousing in India. Yes or no? Government says we are going to promote construction of warehousing in India. That is through what? Through primary agriculture credit societies, PACS. I've mentioned this. It is there. I've written it. You can check it. Right. That is, in fact, I told you PACS, more than 1 lakh PACS are there in India. Right. They will be setting up warehouses throughout India. Right. This will lead to decentralization of warehousing in India. Transportation cost will come down, wastages will come down, etc., etc. All of that we have discussed, it is there in this article. All that we have discussed, it is there in the article. right? So that's the reason I felt this article is very much relevant for your examination. Done. So these are some of the articles that I found to be important for your exams from today's newspapers. But again, you'll have to keep on reading. Every day I cannot come to your home, open the newspaper and keep on telling you, read this newspaper, read this line. That is not how IAS officers are made. I hope you understand that. That don't take it personally, but you should become Atmanirbhar now. This is my 23rd class. I hope you understand. This is my 23rd class. And tell me any one of these 23 classes where I've told you don't read newspapers. In every class, I've made sure, please read newspapers, please read current affairs, etc. etc. Okay, done. So let me continue. The last investment model concept of public-private partnership. That is a PPP, public-private partnership. Now, what is the meaning of public-private partnership? Simple idea. Okay. Under public-private partnership, the government as well as private sector will come together, sign an agreement. Done. The government as well as private sector will come together. They will sign the agreement. And as per the agreement, the private sector will either provide certain services or goods as per the agreement. Any difficulty with the definition, please do let me know. It's very simple, do not complicate it. The government and private sector, both of them will come together, sign the agreement. And as per the agreement, the private sector will provide the goods or services. Let me give a very simple example here. One such agreement could be that private sector will construct a length of, let's say, 100-kilometer stretch of national highway. Done. The private sector will simply construct a 100-kilometer stretch of national highway. That could be one agreement. Another agreement could be, right, the government and private sector will sign the agreement where airport, which is already there, private sector will manage the airport. So in one case, a product is being delivered by the private sector to the government as per the agreement. And in the second case, the product is already there. The private sector will enter into a service agreement. So basically, idea is two parties, government and private sector, coming together, signing the agreement. This agreement is called as concessionaire agreement. And as per the concessionaire agreement, the goods, services, or a combination of it will be provided by the private sector. For example, do you remember the concept of monetization? National monetization pipeline? Yes or no? National monetization pipeline. In case of national monetization pipeline, one of the models of PPP is used. The government is leasing out asset. Models of PPP are used there. Okay. Now, both enter into legally binding agreement. This agreement is called as concessionaire agreement. Both the parties will agree to share responsibilities related to implementation and or operation and management. Now, why do they generally enter into these kinds of agreements? Reasons are very simple. Point number one, all of you will agree when I say we need to invest a lot and develop infrastructure in India. Any disagreement, please do let me know. We need to invest a lot of money and develop infrastructure. Do you think government of India has all the money to invest in infrastructure? No, government doesn't have so much amount of resources. On the other side, private sector is there. Private sector has lot of money. So why not utilize private sector investment? That is the first reason. Second reason, please tell me between government and the private sector, who is expected to implement a project much more efficiently? Think of it, right? Between the government and the private sector, who is expected to implement a project much more efficiently? Who is expected to utilize the resources much more efficiently? Don't you think private sector is associated with all of this? So government says, okay, then let the private sector do it. Let the private sector invest. Third one, in terms of utilizing technology, private sector is always much ahead compared to government agencies. Any problem here? Third point, in terms of utilization of the technology, private sector is always much ahead compared to government agencies. And fourth point, private sector says, I'm going to invest, I'm going to enter into a PPP agreement, and I'm going to generate certain amount of revenue. Because private sector is not doing any charity here. No doubt they will invest, but they are expecting certain amount of profits even from this kind of an investment. So these are some of the reasons why we are actually promoting the concept of public-private partnership. Okay. Now, what are the types of PPP? What are the different models of PPP? Here, before I start, I'll give a very important point. There are more than 20 types of PPP models. You do not have to by heart all the 20 types of PPP models. Trust me when I say this, do not waste your time, right? Because every now and then a new model of PPP is introduced. You don't worry. All you need to understand is certain basic models of public-private partnership. Understand that, go forward. Now, for your class, like I do for every batches, we'll discuss certain basic models of PPPs. Let's start. First one is build, operate, transfer. BOT, build, operate, transfer. Look at the name itself. Please look at the name. Build, operate, transfer. Can I start with an example? Imagine here is a private sector company A. Company A and Government of India will sign a agreement. As per the agreement, Company A will invest, construct, let's say, national highway, and will maintain and operate national highway for 20 years or let's say 30 years. Don't worry, the time period will keep on changing. Let's say the private sector company will invest, will maintain or operate this national highway for 30 years. Just a second. For 30 years. And in these 30 years, the private sector will collect tolls, and after 30-year period is over, they'll simply hand over the national highway to Government of India. After 30-year duration, that is the concessional agreement time period is over, they will simply transfer this, right, national highway to Government of India. Can I call this as build, operate, and transfer? Let me know. Build, operate, and transfer. Private sector is building, private sector is maintaining or operating, and after the time period is over, it will simply transfer the asset to Government of India. Right, so that is basically the model of BOT. Why 30-year window? My dear, there is absolutely no fixed number like this. It is generally 12 years, 18 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years. And it will be a longer duration. It has to be a longer duration. Think of it. If you want to construct a national highway, are you going to invest 100 rupees? You put yourself in the shoes of the private sector. If you're going to set up a national highway, are you going to invest 100 rupees? No, you will invest thousands of crores of rupees. And can you recollect thousands of crores of rupees within 1 month? Within 6 months? Within 1 year? No, that will not happen. That will not happen. You will have to collect the amount over a longer period of time. That is the reason a longer duration agreements are signed like this. Okay. Second, lease, develop, operate. LDO, lease, develop, operate. Government will own the infrastructure. It will lease out the infrastructure to the private sector for certain period. For example, many of the airports in India have been leased out to private sector, have been given to private sector for 18 years, for 30 years, for 25 years. Now, who is owning the airport? Let me know, who is owning the airport? Right? Is Government of India giving away the ownership of airport? No. Government of India will keep the airport with itself. But for certain time period, they will simply lease it out to a private sector company. And the private sector company will utilize the infrastructure, and for that, they will pay certain amount of money to Government of India. That is basically lease, develop, operate, LDO. Third one, service contract. Service contract. Private sector player will provide some of the services only for specific period of time. The private sector companies will provide only some of the services, not all, some of the services for a specific period of time. For example, right? For example, imagine there is one project, let's say metro project. Simple example, let's say metro project. In case of metro project, there are multiple services provided to you. Yes or no? Let me know. There are multiple services, right? That is no doubt. For you, metro will be traveling in the train. For you, metro means traveling in the train. But let me know what is the basic flow chart here. First, you will go to the metro station. There will be security personnel. Yes or no? Security personnel, right? So they can be outsourced. They can be from a private sector company. Then there are people who are cleaning the metro station. The cleaning services can be outsourced to a private sector. Then you will go to the ticketing counter. People who are sitting in the ticketing counter, they can be outsourced to the private sector. Now you'll enter into the metro, right? Or before that, again, security personnel are there. They can be from a private sector. So I hope you understand this. There are multiple services, right? Metro is not just one service, it's a combination of multiple services. What if only one or few of the services are given to private sector? Possible or not? Right? So few of the services, some of the services will be outsourced to a private sector. That is called as a service contract. And finally, hybrid annuity model, HAM, hybrid annuity model. Now, what is this hybrid annuity model? Let me explain this. Follow this very carefully. Under hybrid annuity model, what we use is basically combination of certain features of EPC, engineering, procurement, construction, engineering, procurement, construction, which is also a type of PPP only. Engineering, procurement, construction, and build, operate, transfer. Build, operate, transfer. Now, all of you know what is build, operate, transfer. Let me explain another PPP model, engineering, procurement, construction. In case of engineering, procurement, construction, here is the government. Government wants certain infrastructure project to be developed. Okay, there is an infrastructure project which needs to be developed. It could be a building, it could be a road, it could be anything. There is an infrastructure project which requires construction. Rather than government utilizing its own resources, it will simply outsource to private sector. It will simply give it to a private sector company. But please understand the next point carefully. The private sector will construct the infrastructure and simply hand it over after the construction is over. Let me know. I'll repeat it again. Right? This private sector company will construct the infrastructure. They will not operate it. They will not maintain it. They will simply hand it over to the government, and government will make the payment to the private sector. Any difficulty in understanding this engineering, procurement, construction model? Can I give you example? In most of the cities, roads are constructed. Don't you think this is exactly the model that they actually follow? Right? That is, different construction companies are there. Any construction company which will bid the lowest amount, tender process, which will bid the lowest amount, they will hand over the infrastructure project to that company. And when they will construct the road, government will make a payment to the private sector company. Now, who is owning the asset? Who is operating the asset, etc.? All of it will be done by the government itself. Right? That is basically the model of engineering, procurement, construction. And I hope you understand. Arey Baba, I expected this. Any difference between EPC and BOT? You tell me. Don't you think you should tell me the difference between EPC and BOT now, rather than me telling you what is the difference? You have seen what is the example of build, operate, transfer. You have seen what is the example of engineering, procurement, construction, and even then you are asking me what is the difference. You tell me what is the difference. Can't you find any difference between both of them? In case of build, operate, transfer, private sector will invest their own money, maintain the project, and will have the right to collect revenue. In case of engineering, procurement, construction, Right? Don't you think the right to collect revenue will go to the government? The right to operate road will go to the government. I hope you understand this. Right? And again, please don't keep on asking these. Right? The difference is very much clear when I explained. Anyways, HAM is a mix of EPC and BOT model. Engineering, procurement, construction, build, operate, transfer. Now, what is this hybrid annuity model? What is this hybrid annuity model? Look at the term hybrid. Hybrid means what? All of you heard of the term hybrid? Not in economics, but day to day activity. Hybrid means what? It's a mix. Hybrid means it's a mix. Right? Why this is called as a hybrid annuity model? Let me explain it. Imagine there is a road. I think there is a picture I've taken from the government website only. Have a look at this. Imagine there is an infrastructure project which is supposed to be constructed. Let's say a national highway. And if we are going to use the hybrid annuity model, how it will be constructed? Understand this very carefully. Government says, if the cost of the project, if I simply give out to anybody to develop, the cost of the project is, let's say, 100 crore rupees, 40% of the project cost will be given by the government. Can you see at the top in the picture? Can you see at the top? 40% of the cost of the project will be given by the government. And remaining 60% of the cost, that is in this example 60 crore, the private sector will have to invest from their own money. They can borrow, they can put from their own pocket, doesn't matter. 40% in 5 years. In 5 years will be provided by the government, and remaining 60%, right, the private sector has to bring and invest. Point number one. Point number two, now the road construction is over. Private sector will simply hand over the road constructed to the government. Have a look at this. The road construction is over. The private sector will simply hand it over to the government. Now, the government, either if they want, government directly can collect a toll, or they can simply give it to somebody else. That power is there with the government. So private sector will construct the road, give it to the government. Government, either they themselves can collect the tolls through National Highways Authority of India, or they can basically hand it over to somebody else only to collect the tolls. And have a look at this. Operation and maintenance part. Right? If there is a certain maintenance which has to be done to the road, it will be done by the private sector. Concessionaire is nothing but private sector company. But many of you will be thinking, what is the advantage for the private sector here? Why is the private sector making an investment? Why are they investing here? Very simple. The government will provide annual payments, including making certain interest payment on the investment done by the private sector. Is it okay? Have a look at this. The government, for any investment that is done by the private sector, the government will make annual payments to the private sector, including interest payments, right? Including certain interest payments will be done by the government to the private sector, whatever investments they have done. Right now, please tell me, are you not seeing certain features of EPC model here? Plus, are you not seeing certain features of BOT model? Let me know. Right? Are you not seeing certain features that is a mix of EPC model as well as a BOT model? And that is the precise reason this is called as a hybrid. This is called as a hybrid. And please understand, because the government makes annual payments, hybrid annuity model. Is it okay? Hybrid annuity model. That is basically the concept of HAM. Any problem here? Can we go forward? Any problem? So in hybrid, they're not using, then how it is BOT? My dear, in build, operate, transfer, who is making investment? Who is making investment in build, operate, transfer? Private sector. Are you seeing private sector making certain investments here? In build, operate, operations, operate, maintenance, who is doing? In BOT, concessionaire, that is the private sector. Who is doing the O&M, operations and maintenance, right? Who is doing it? Again, the private sector. right? That is precisely the reason why this is right, the hybrid annuity model. Any issues here? Can we go forward? Repeat. Okay, I'll repeat it again. Imagine an infrastructure project has to be constructed. Let's say the cost of the project is 100 crore. Government of India in the first 5 years will make 40% of the project cost in the form of payment. Any problem? 40% of the project cost will be paid by the government. Point number 2, remaining 60% who has to invest here? The private sector has to invest. Right? Imagine you are the government, I am the private sector company. You will make a payment of 40 crore, I will invest 60 crore rupees. Road construction is over, I will hand over the road to you. Now, you using your agencies can collect tolls, or you can simply outsource it to private sector again. That is entirely your prerogative. But what is my role here? I will provide maintenance services if there is certain repairs which has to be done, etc., because I have constructed. I hope you understand. Many of you are asking, sir, why will the private sector provide maintenance services? My dear, think of it. If I do not have the duty of providing maintenance services, are you sure about the quality of the roads that I'm going to construct? Let me know. Will you be sure what will be the quality of road that I'm going to construct? I will receive the payment, I'll go away. What about the quality? Right? That is a precise reason. That's a precise reason. Right? The private sector is given the duty of providing these O&M services. But again, for that also charges are paid. Service charges are paid by the government. Don't worry. Right? So O&M payments are given. It is there right here. Please have a look at it. And government says, for any investment that you have done, I will make annual payments to you. And not just whatever you have paid, whatever you've invested, I will give you that, plus I will also give you certain interest. I'll also give you certain interest. Right? That model is called as, right, hybrid annuity model. Okay? Hybrid annuity model. Done? Can we go forward now? Extra money will be granted for maintenance. My dear, please look at the table. This is the third time I'm telling you, please look at the table. Right? So that is O&M payments. O&M payments. Can we go forward? The class is getting stuck. Please hit refresh. Please hit refresh. Please hit refresh. Okay? In table, it is written biannual. Biannual simply means, right, that is twice in a year. That's basically how the payment is done. I think you remember all of this. In case of government securities also, you tell me, did I tell you this or not? In case of government securities, please tell me, will the government make you annual payment or biannual payment? Go back. Let me check whether you're revising or not. Is the government making annual payment or biannual payments? That is the government making a coupon payment once in a year or twice in a year? Biannual. I think I've written it, or I've told you. You can check the videos as well. I've told you, if the coupon rate is 6 rupees, right, in 2 installments, 3 rupee plus 3 rupees is given. That is basically the idea. Okay. Now again, that this is more than sufficient for UPSC. Trust me, this is more than sufficient. None of the books are covering this. More than sufficient. Let's go forward. What are the issues with the PPP model? What are the issues in the PPP model? Now, first one, long-term investment or getting access to long-term financing is a problem. Anybody has a problem with point number 1? Let me know, because we have discussed this multiple times. Second one, existing contracts focus more on the financial returns rather than providing services. That is, imagine you are the government, I am the private sector. Whenever we sign the agreement, are we focused on providing quality services, or are we focused on how much will be my profit motive, right? How much money you will be saving? I hope you understand this. Right? Most of the times, the focus of these PPPs will be, government will say, I am not going to invest. Private sector will invest. And private sector, rather than thinking about the services, quality of the services, their focus will be how much profit I can generate here, right? How much profit will I generate there? How much profit in this PPP, etc., etc. Right? So focus is always on the profit motive rather than on the quality of the services. Third one, private developers lose bargaining power in long-term projects with policy changes. Slightly technical, let me explain this. Follow this very carefully. Private developers will lose bargaining power in long-term projects with policy changes. I'll give a very simple example. You will only give the answer to me now. Imagine you are the private sector company. You will construct, let's say, 500-kilometer national highway, and you are collecting toll for 30 years. You're collecting tolls for 30 years. Now, after 2 or 3 years is over, there is a new, right, railway project which has been announced. For example, right, the new Vande Bharat project has been announced, which will connect both of the cities A and B. Now, please tell me, if this Vande Bharat project is implemented, don't you think the time taken to travel between A and B automatically will go down? Let me know, right? Will the time taken automatically go down or not? Yes or no? I'm seeing no, none of you are answering. Am I audible? Okay, am I audible now? 1 second. Am I audible now? Okay, so let's start. So what I was saying was, imagine I've given you the power to construct agreement to construct a national highway here, 500-kilometer length. You have invested and you have constructed this road. And 2 years after that, I will announce, right, Vande Bharat Express connecting both of the same cities. So if the time traveling will reduce, don't you think more and more people will get shifted from road transportation to, let's say, Vande Bharat Express? And if people, rather than taking road, will shift to the railway mode of a transportation, what will happen to your revenue collection? What will happen to your toll collection? Automatically your revenue or toll collection will fall down, will go down. Any problem here? This is exactly what I'm saying. This is exactly what I'm saying. That is, these are long-term projects. These are long-term agreements. And right after certain time period, because of the policies of the government of India, your revenue potential could be affected. Automatically your revenue potential will get affected. What if you are incurring losses then? I hope you understand this. So that will basically have an impact on your revenue, right? And that is the point I'm trying to make. Again, this is one example. Don't say, sir, ticket price will change, etc., etc. My dear, this is one example. Can I give you one more example? Imagine you have entered into a contract with Government of India to construct one infrastructure project. You are importing raw material from rest of the world, and already there is an agreement. How much money government will pay to you? There is an agreement. Now, after 1 year is over, Government of India will increase the taxes on the product that you are importing. Let me know. The product that you're importing, which is required to manufacture or let's say produce that infrastructure, the taxes on that will increase. With that, will your profits increase or fall down? Can there be a danger that you might incur losses because of that? Right? So I hope you understand. Don't take one example and start running with that. Sir, the population will change. You are not counting that. What if petrol becomes cheaper? You are not counting that. What if train price, ticket prices are higher? You are not counting. Don't worry. Is it going to have an impact or not? Understand that. That is more important here. Right? So private developers will lose bargaining power, right, in long-term projects because there are policy changes. Next, issues with land acquisition. Any infrastructure project you want to develop, right? Let's say a manufacturing facility, roads, hospitals, airports, NIMZ, SEZ, everywhere there is issue with the land acquisition. Next, issues with government clearances, right? That is generally what you expect is government agencies or let's say government ministry will give you all the clearances very soon. But what if one or the other ministry will hold your clearance because one of your investors is from China? Yes or no? Can that happen? Let me know. Right? One of your investors is from China. So government of India will say, okay, let me look at the project very carefully then. Let me look at what you're proposing very carefully then. Right? Or Ministry of Environment and Forest will look at your project and say, you are destroying certain, right, a forest area. Right? So I will hold your approvals. Or right, let's say you have developed the project, you have started constructing the project. Somebody will go to Supreme Court of India, file a petition against it. By the way, why I'm telling you all these examples, are you seeing these examples in the current affairs or not? Let me know. Are you seeing all these examples in the current affairs? For example, Supreme Court of India. What about bullet train project? Again, I know that's not a basic idea, but what about PPP? What about bullet train project? Cost of bullet train project increased because of one of the orders of Supreme Court of India. That is the precise reason I am telling you these examples. Okay. So if there are any issues related to government clearances, the project can be delayed. That will have impact on your revenue. Project can get stuck off, right? That will project will not be even completed. It will become an NPA, right, etc. Okay, so that is some of the issues related to PPP. Couple of more. Private sector is not interested in all the sectors. Private sector is interested only in some of the sectors in India. For example, most of the PPP projects in India are done in a road sector. Remember this. Again, I'm talking about the central government. Most of the PPPs in India have been entered into in the road sector. But government of India has opened up many sectors for PPP. Right? Private sector says, okay, profit is very less there. Government can intervene very easily, etc., etc. Citing many reasons, private sector is not interested in all the sectors, very few of the sectors. And here itself, the PPP projects are not implemented throughout India uniformly. There are very few states where most of the PPP projects have been implemented. For example, right, in case of states such as Andhra, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, again, these are usual suspects. Gujarat, Maharashtra, Karnataka, right, the industrial states, the most industrial states, those are some of the states where most of the PPP projects have been implemented. Right, so these are some of the issues. Next one, NPA and infrastructure projects have increased, and many of these infrastructure projects are nothing but projects which are supposed to be developed or which are under development, right, under the model of PPP. Delays in development of infrastructure projects have been caused because of pandemic. Reason for this is simply pandemic. Yes or no? The pandemic has basically extended, right, the time period for which the projects are supposed to be implemented. And when you're going to implement, there is a delay in the project. Always remember this. That will increase the cost of the project. Whenever you're going to implement a project and the time taken for implementation of the project is delayed, cost of the project automatically will increase. Many of you will ask me, as expected, many of you will ask me, sir, how? If the cost of the project there is a delay, then how the cost will increase? Simple idea. Let me give you only one example. Understand by that the fact is correct. Let's say you have hired 10 people, you want to construct a road. I'm one of them. Okay. Now, the project was supposed to be completed in 10 days, but because of various reasons, now the project will take 12 days to complete. Simple question to all of you. Are you going to pay me the wages only for 10 days or are you going to pay the wages for 12 days? Think of it. Are you going to pay the wages for 10 days or 12 days? You will pay the wages for 12 days because I was there at the site for 12 days. So what has happened to the cost of the project here? The cost of project automatically has increased. What about your loan? You are supposed to complete the project, generate revenue and pay the interest. If the project completion itself gets delayed, don't you think your loan repayment will also get delayed? interest payment will increase. So there are so many things that you need to consider whenever there is a delayed project. And delayed project simply means cost of the project will start increasing. And so these are some of the issues related to the public-private partnership projects in India. So what has to be the recommendation, right? Are there any recommendations, any reforms? There is one committee report, very, very famous now, Kelkar Committee report. Mr. Vijay Kelkar Committee. Vijay Kelkar is very, very famous. He's a very famous economist in India, Mr. Vijay Kelkar. In fact, he was the chairman, right? The chairman of 14th Finance Commission. Now, what is the recommendation of Mr. Vijay Kelkar Committee? Let's try and understand one by one. Point number one, state should not be allowed to participate in the PPP. Let me explain this. But answer to my question, the role of the government, should it be to provide services to the people or should it be to generate profit? Think of it and answer. Right? What is the role of the government? Either state government or central government, don't worry. Is it to provide services or is it to generate profit? All of you will agree? It should be to provide welfare. It should be to provide services. That is their role. They should not run behind profit. Their objective should not be to generate profit. It should be to provide services. Now, that should be sorted. Point number two, whenever you talk about PPP, central government is one of the party, and let's say another party is a authority or an institution owned by the state government. Now, please look at this and tell me, is it a PPP model? I'll repeat it again. There is imagine a PPP agreement. One of the party is the central government. Another party is an authority of the state government. Can you strictly call this as a PPP? PPP means what? Public-private. Do you remember the term? Second P. Public-private. Where is the private entity in this? Please let me know. Those are saying, right, yes, in true sense, in a technical sense, this is a PPP. Where is the private sector entity? Please do let me know here. Is there a representation of the private sector entity? Absolutely no. And those are saying, sir, authority is there. My dear, what is written below authority? What is written below authority? Can't you read? It is entity owned by the state government, which means there are two governments which are entering into agreement with each other. And don't you think role of the state government mainly should be to provide services, not to run behind profit motive? I hope you understand this. Right, sir, should they earn profit? Of course, yes. Right, for example, I cannot generalize and say, right, public sector bank should not earn profit. Then they will shut down. I hope you understand. Some of you said, sir, you are wrong. Right, they should earn profit also. My question was, what should be the main objective? What should be the priority for the government? Priority for the government should always be to provide services. Yes, in the process of providing services, they will generate profit, no issues. But the government should not always run behind profits. That should not be the objective of the government. Their priority should not be to earn profit. Now, please tell me, if a private sector entity operates an airport, objective is what? Profit. If the state government entity wants to operate airport, is it to provide welfare services or to earn profit? If the government owned entity, that is, let's say the state government owned entity, if they start operating a profit, right, let's say international airport, do you think they are doing it for welfare? Any gullible people here? Do you think they are providing welfare? Do you think they will provide everything free of a cost or at right a break-even price? No, they want to earn profit. Don't say welfare there. There is no welfare objective in providing airport services. You talk about hospital services, educational institution, right? You talk about free food services through canteens. That is welfare, my dear. Operating an international airport, how is it welfare? Let me know. Operating an international airport, can it be welfare? Never. It can never be welfare. It is to earn profit. That is the contention of Kelkar committee. And right, there is one more argument here. If the state government finds that they can earn more and more profit through PPP project, don't you think they will try to get more and more involved in these kind of projects rather than focusing on the welfare projects? Is it possible or not? If a state government will find that, okay, through PPP I can earn more profit, then why will they focus on the welfare objectives of the state? They will try to get more and more involved in the profit generation objective, right? So possibility is there. That's the reason. Have a look at this. When I say states here, state agencies, okay, those states, that is the state agencies, should not be allowed to participate in the PPP. That happens in India. The Kelkar committee says do not allow them. Second one, there should be risk allocation guideline, right? What is this risk allocation? Let me give a very simple example. I've asked you this question earlier also. Imagine you're constructing a road, national highway. You're a private sector company. You're constructing a national highway. Will you face any kind of a risk in construction and maintenance of this road? Let me know. Are you going to face any kind of a risk in construction and maintenance of this road? Answer is yes. What kind of risk? What about labor availability? What about cost of land acquisition? Cost of land acquisition, that's very, very important. Right? What about import cost? Right? Rupee depreciation, it's also a risk for you. Right? Etc. etc. So there are a lot of risks. But please understand, generally whenever the agreements are signed, whatever risk is associated with the project, all the risk should be handled, should be taken care of by the private sector. Every risk, government says private sector will handle all the risk. What this committee says is that should not be the situation. Risk allocation should be done between the government as well as the private sector. The risk allocation should be divided between both government as well as the private sector. Let me tell you how it can be done. For example, right, look at this. For example, what if government, that is a state government, will make it easier to acquire land for private sector? Let me know. What if the state government will make it easier for the private sector to acquire land? Don't you think the land acquisition risk to a very great extent is addressed by the involvement of the state government? Yes or no? Right? What if, right, the natural disaster risk that you are facing now, many of the states, there is a concern that infrastructure will be destroyed by Biparjoy. Right? So what if the government will provide certain insurance to these kinds of infrastructure projects? Is the risk addressed? Right? So that is the argument here. There should be guidelines for the risk allocation. Risk should be distributed between both the center as well as the state. Do not allocate only to the private sector. Okay. Third, right now we do not have PPP framework. We do not have national PPP framework. Right? Every state government have their own policies for PPP. Central government also has its own policy for PPP. What this committee says is have a national policy for PPP, public-private partnership. Fourth one is discourage Swiss challenge model. Discourage Swiss challenge model. Now, what is the Swiss challenge model? Let me explain it to you. Follow this very carefully. What is the Swiss challenge model? Generally, what is the process? Government will identify a project to be constructed. Then the government will call for the participation of the private sector. Any problem here? I'm telling you the sequence. What is the sequence? Government wants a project to be constructed. Now government will ask the private sector who wants to construct this, right? Start giving me the proposals. But in case of a Swiss challenge model, government has not announced any project. Without any announcement, private sector company will approach the government with a proposal. I repeat it. without any announcement. Government has not thought of anything. There is no proposal at all in the government. The government is there. Private sector company will approach the government with a proposal. This is called as a Swiss challenge model. Now, why this is called as a challenge model here? Imagine you are the chief minister. Today you are the chief minister, by the way. Right? Imagine you are the chief minister. I am the private sector. I will come with a proposal to you. Imagine this is a proposal. I'll come with a proposal for an infrastructure project. I'll submit it to you. Will you accept it? Simply accept it? Let me know. Will you simply accept it? If you accept it, trust me, tomorrow Enforcement Directorate will come to your home. CBI will come to your home. Right? They will simply pick you up, put you in the right ambulance and take you to the hospital for health inspection. So argument is you should not accept it. Why? Where is transparency? I hope you understand. Where is transparency there? There could be a collusion. There could be a corruption. So what might happen is, right, I will give us a proposal to you. Now you will announce the project. You will basically tell rest of the market, right, this project we want to construct and we already have a proposal. Anybody wants to compete with this? Let me know. Anybody wants to compete with this? Give us a proposal. So there is a competition. There is a challenge now. Somebody else might also come with a proposal, give a challenge to me. And that is the reason why this model is referred to as a Swiss challenge model. Any difficulty in understanding this? Right? Any difficulty? Right? It's a very basic idea. Swiss challenge model means the developer will approach government rather than opposite. Generally, what will happen? Government will announce a project and others will come. That is, private sector company will come. But without any announcement, if the private sector will approach the government, there is a term called as unsolicited. What do you mean by unsolicited? Without any announcement, you are approaching the government. You are giving a proposal to the government. That is called as unsolicited. Right? So basically, without any ask, nobody is asking you, but you are giving it. Right? So that is an unsolicited proposal. This is called as a Swiss challenge model. But tell me, please tell me, even in the Swiss challenge model, is there a scope of corruption? Let me know. Even in the Swiss challenge model, can there be a scope of corruption? Of course, yes. There can be a huge scope of corruption. Some of you are saying, no, my dear. There is a huge scope of corruption. Right? Again, some of you are asking how? Not required. Have you heard of 2G scandal? 2G scam. Have you heard of 2G scam? Right? For example, you will accept this proposal from me. You will announce to the market by tomorrow. If anybody wants to challenge it, submit a proposal. Think of it. You are accepting this proposal from me and you're telling the market within 24 hours, if anybody wants to challenge the proposal, submit your proposal. Do you think people will be able to, that is, companies will be able to study the project, come out with a proposal in 24 hours? Right? I hope you understand. Right? So that's the reason, again, don't write all of this story in UPSC. I hope you understand. Don't write all of this in UPSC. That's the reason the committee says, do not promote Swiss challenge model. Right? Do not promote Swiss challenge model. And some of you are focused on 2G scandal now. Not required for UPSC. Those who have understood, good. And if you have not understood, nobody is going to cut your marks in UPSC. Don't worry. In interview, the chairman will not ask you, acha, so please tell me, right, how the 2G scandal happened. Absolutely no. Right? So don't worry about that. So that is the idea. Discourage Swiss challenge model. Next, protect the bargaining of the private sector players. All of you understand why this has been given now? Let me know. Protect the bargaining power, negotiation power of private sector. And if you ask me, sir, why this has been announced, please look at this recommendation. Sorry, please look at this issue here. Private developers will keep on losing the bargaining power because the projects are of a longer duration, and government will implement policies. It will have a direct or indirect impact on the revenue generation of the private sector players. That's the reason, protect the bargaining power of the private sector, allow for renegotiations. we should also have a sector specific regulators. Sir, what do you mean by sector specific regulator? Who is the regulator for stock market? Regulator for stock market, SEBI. We have discussed that, by the way. Securities Exchange Board of India. Who is the regulator for banking sector? For banking sector, Reserve Bank of India, RBI. In the same way, for all the sectors where we have PPP like this, we should have sector specific regulators. Because the role of the regulator is to ensure that whatever are the guidelines, all the participants, whoever is the participant, all of them will follow the guidelines. Next, frame guidelines for auditing the account books of private sector. Let me explain why we should have guidelines here. Let me start. Imagine there is an airport. Okay, let's start with an example. Imagine there is an airport and you have given the airport to me. You are the government, I'm the private sector. I'm supposed to operate the airport for 20 years, and whatever revenue I've generated, 10% of the revenue I will have to share it with you. All of you will agree with me? Right? I'm just giving an example of a model. Right? You have given an airport to me for 20 years. 10% of the revenue I will have to share it with you. I'm a private sector company. So if I give you, let's say after 1 year, 1 crore rupees, how will you be able to find out whether this 1 crore rupees is 10% of my revenue or not? Think of it. How will you be able to find out this 1 crore rupee, whether this is 10% of my revenue or not? Right? You can simply say, sir, I will send Comptroller Auditor General. My dear, CAG cannot audit private sector. In case of, polity will come across this. In polity will come across, there is one authority, constitutional authority in India. That is basically CAG, Comptroller Auditor General. CAG cannot touch private sector. CAG can only check government finances. So now, on what basis? Some of you said, sir, auditors are there in the private sector. My dear, are you sure those private sector auditors will give you always honest opinion? Haven't you seen many situations where even the auditors were involved and basically they have cooked up the books? So argument is simple. There is no guarantee. There is no guarantee. But you want to know whether I'm giving you 10% of the revenue or not. So that's the reason you will have to frame guidelines to audit account books of the private sector. Right? So these are some of the recommendations of Kelkar committee. Can we go forward now? Next concept, viability gap funding. Viability gap funding, VGF. Now, very often this concept of VGF is mentioned in the context of infrastructure projects. Now, what is this idea of a viability gap funding? Let me start with a very simple example here. Now, imagine you are the government of India, you're the Prime Minister. Would you want the private sector to construct national highways? Yes or no? Would you want private sector to construct national highway? Of course, yes. Would you want private sector to construct warehousing? Yes. Would you want private sector to construct different types of infrastructure project? Of course, yes. But I'm a private sector company. My concern is completely different. For the government, they want private sector to invest. It makes a perfect economic sense. What do you mean by economic sense here? Investment will increase. It will lead to creation of employment. Infrastructure availability will increase, etc. But for the private sector, I am not doing charity. My concern is, if I invest 100 crore rupees, what if I'm not able to generate more than 100 crore rupee revenue? Profit motive. What if I'm not able to generate sufficient amount of revenue? For me, employment is not a concern. For me, investment is not my concern. For you, it is a concern. For me, profit is a concern. So I'm worried about revenue. Right? I'm worried about feasibility. Feasibility means whether this project will provide me sufficient amount of revenue or not. And As a result of this, what might happen is, I might simply say, I will not invest in the project, I will back out of the project. Is it okay? I will simply back out of the project. I'll say I'll not invest. So as a government, it's a concern for you. If private sector will not invest, it's a concern for you. So what you will have to do? You will have to provide certain funding to me. Simple idea. You'll have to provide a certain funding to me. My concern is that I'm investing 100 crore rupees, not a small amount. My investment is 100 crore. What if I don't generate sufficient amount of revenue? Right? In that case, what government will do is, part of the project cost, government will provide in the form of funds. Please don't ask me interest rate. Please don't ask me repayment. I'm saying it is paid in the form of funding. In the form of funding. It's not a loan. It's a form of funding. Now imagine, out of 100 crore rupee that is required to invest in the project, imagine if the government will give me, let's say, 60 crore rupees. Right? If the government will give me 60 crore rupees, don't you think my revenue concern, the revenue feasibility concern will be addressed now? Because I'm not going to invest 100, I'm going to invest only 40 crore rupees. So don't you think this will promote more and more private sector participation, more and more investment from the private sector will take place. This process is called as viability gap funding. This is referred to as viability gap funding, VGF. Please have a look at this. Viability gap funding is provided to a project where the project is economically justified. The project is economically justified. That is, it will create employment. It will increase private sector participation. National highways, more and more construction means automatically cost of transportation will come down. Easy movement of the goods and services, goods and people will take place. Economically, the project is justified. But earlier, what was the concern? It will lack financial viability. That is, in terms of revenue, there is a concern whether the private sector will be able to generate sufficient amount of revenue by investing 100 crores. Right? In such cases, the government will provide funding. Okay, the government will provide funding. This funding is called as viability gap funding. Right? And in case of PPP projects, I'm specifically talking about PPP projects now. Right? In case of PPP projects, public-private partnership projects, Government of India has launched a scheme, Viability Gap Funding Scheme, which will be implemented till 24-25. This was introduced back in 2006. Under this PPP projects, that is a VGF for PPP, what we have done is, we have divided all the different types of PPP projects into two categories. Simply by this, we have divided these PPP projects into two categories. And these two categories are basically sub-scheme 1, sub-scheme 2. If your project will fall under the sub-scheme 1, up to 60% of the total project cost will be provided by the government. Is it okay? Up to 60%, not exactly 60 like this, that the government has a prerogative here. Up to 60% of the project cost will be provided. And when you say up to 60%, generally up to 30% will come from the center. It will come from the central government, and another up to 30% can come from the respective ministry. It can come from even the state government as well. It can come from the state government as well. So in case of a project which will fall under the sub-scheme 1, up to 60% of the TPC, total project cost, will be provided by the government. If your project will fall under the sub-scheme 2, up to 80% of the capital expenditure will be provided by the government. I hope you understand the difference between total project cost and the capital expenditure. Capital expenditure means if you have purchased a machine, if you have purchased certain assets in the process of completion of the project, that is capex. And apart from the machines, will you incur repeated expenditure, right? Labor cost, etc., etc. All of that put together will be total project cost. Okay, right? So this is sub scheme 1 and sub scheme 2. Simply by heart this. Don't do a PhD on this. Trust me when I say this. I can simply take a photograph, let's say PDF document is there. I can take a photo, paste it in the slide. Right, around 40 plus schemes are there. I'm sorry, 40 plus types of projects are covered. Simple waste of time. Simply by it, two components are there. Sub scheme 1, certain PPP projects are here up to 60% of the project cost. Sub scheme 2, right, certain PPP projects are there up to 80% of the capital expenditure. That's basically the idea. By heart, move forward. Okay, so this is one more type of initiative that has been taken by the government in order to promote PPP, public private partnership projects in India. So that is the end of the chapter here. That is basically the investment models. Certain questions are there. We'll come back to the questions either during the break or after the break. Don't worry. We'll cover the questions. Next concept I want to cover with you people is the idea of infrastructure. The concept of infrastructure. Now, when I discuss infrastructure, trust me when I say this, we'll discuss a lot of current affairs. Do not search for these concepts in the books. Generally, they don't have the coverage regarding this. And whatever coverage they have, I'll tell you. For example, when they give you information about road, they will tell you how many national highways are there in India. How many national highways? What is the length of the national highways? Do you think UPSC is going to ask you such questions? How many airports are there in India? Right? How many airports in North India? How many airports in South India? Which is the largest airport? Right? Which has the largest capacity of handling customers? No. Right? Some of us saying they might ask. My dear, as far as I'm concerned, if they ask also, right, trust me, people will not know the answer. Don't say, sir, they might ask. Then everything you'll have to read. I hope you understand. If your answer is, sir, they might ask, so I want to read, then everything you'll have to read. Maybe for 4 years, you'll have to read economics only. Then also, trust me, you will not finish economics. Again, don't waste time. As far as I'm concerned, don't waste your time. Okay. Now, what are the points I'll be covering? We will be covering power sector, railway sector, roads, ports, airports. In addition to this, we'll also be covering the waterways. We'll also be covering the concept of waterways in India. Again, don't start typing what is waterways. We'll discuss that, don't worry. But before I go forward, what is the meaning of the term infrastructure? If I ask you, define infrastructure, many of you will basically tell me, roads, sir, railways, sir. Those are examples of. Okay, now am I audible? Am I audible now? Please give me a thumbs up if I'm audible as well as visible. Okay, done. Don't worry. Let's start then. Okay. So what I was doing was I was basically writing the definition of infrastructure. Let's start. Don't worry. I'm not going to run away. Right. Don't worry. I'm here. You're also here. Let's start now. What is infrastructure? Infrastructure is basically the one which will provide supporting services. Which will provide supporting services for development and growth. For development and growth. Okay, again, I'll write the full form. Some of you will say DEV means what? Development. And some of you will say, sir has written name of a person. Who is Dev here? So development and growth. So for the development of growth, whatever supporting services will be provided, this is called as infrastructure. For example, if you construct, let's say a hospital, is it going to provide support in terms of development or not? Right? If you construct, let's say a port, is it going to contribute to growth or not? If you construct an expressway, is it going to contribute to growth or not? So argument is simple here. Infrastructure is anything that will provide supporting services for development as well as growth. And generally, just for sake of understanding, generally, you can divide the infrastructure into one, social infrastructure, and second one is economic infrastructure. One is social infrastructure, second one is economic infrastructure. For example, hospitals, schools are the prime examples of social infrastructure. The best example of economic infrastructure are expressways as well as ports. So that is a basic idea. Infrastructure will provide supporting services for the development as well as growth. And in the case of economy, let's try and understand some types of infrastructure here: power, railways, roads, waterways, ports, as well as airports. Now let's start. Power sector. Now, whenever you talk about power sector, generally there are three components, right? There are three parts in the power sector. First one is generation. Generation is nothing but production of electricity. Now, once the production of electricity is done, don't you think somebody has to transmit electricity? Transmit means transportation of electricity. That is second step, transmission of the electricity. Now, once the transmission is done, somebody has to distribute the electricity to all of us. And that is basically nothing but distribution of the electricity. Now, please understand, in case of generation, we have central government, which is involved in the production of electricity. We have the states, which are also producing electricity. In addition to both of them, we also have private sector, which will also produce electricity. Right? So central government is there, state government is there, even the private sector is there in terms of generation of electricity. In the context of transmission, once the electricity is produced, who will transmit it? Transmit means moving. Who will transmit electricity? It is majorly done by central government through an agency called as Power Grid. And once a transmission is done, imagine the electricity is given to each of the states. Now the distribution has to be done. The companies which will distribute electricity majorly are owned by the state government. Majorly are owned by the state government. Right? In addition to state government, we also have private sector which is involved in the distribution of electricity. For example, in Mumbai, private sector companies are there: Tata Power, Reliance Power, Adani Power, right, etc., which will provide or which will distribute the electricity. Right? So first is a generation of the electricity. Second one is a transmission of the electricity. Third one is the distribution of the electricity. Now, can I call the companies which are generating electricity as the companies which are distributing electricities as distribution companies, that is DISCOMs? First one, the companies which are distributing electricities, can I call them as DISCOMs? And the first one, that is the companies which are generating electricity, can I call those as GENCOs? These are the terms which will come across in the newspaper. It's basically a short form. What is a GENCO? Generation company. Simple. Generation company. And what is a DISCOM? Distribution company. Right? Don't get confused. Whenever you're reading the newspaper, I'm pretty sure you have come across the term DISCOM. Right? A distribution company. So DISCOM and GENCO. Remember the terminologies. We'll start using that. Now, what are the issues in the power sector? What are the issues? And many of the books have given you data regarding how much electricity we are producing. Don't by heart it. Please don't waste your time. Do not by heart it. Why? Don't you think by the time you write the exam, the generation capacity in India would have changed? Let me know. Yes or no? Right. So basically today, right, many of the solar companies are getting set up. Government is promoting wind energy. Do you think production capacity will remain constant in India? Of course, no. By the time you write the exam, the number will change. But one fact is there as of now. Most of the electricity that is produced in India, it is produced either through coal or right, it is produced through gas. Remember that. Most of the electricity that is produced in India, it is basically through coal and gas. thermal energy. They will simply call it as thermal energy. Very small percentage will come from renewable. We also have right other forms, that is nuclear energy. Now let me go ahead. What are the issues in the power sector? First one, high aggregate technical and commercial losses. This aggregate technical and commercial losses, in short, is also written as AT and C. Technical term, high aggregate technical and commercial losses, in short, AT and C. Now what is this aggregate technical and commercial losses? The government of India, or let's say the state government, the agency will distribute electricity. Some of the people will steal electricity. Have you seen that? Some of the people will simply steal electricity. And in villages, many of the villages, this is very, very rampant, very commonly practiced. That is basically they will have two wires with hooks, right? They will have wires like this. They will put it on the wire, directly draw the electricity. And in some houses, they will tamper with the meters. That's a reason now they are introducing the concept of smart meters, etc. So what will happen as a result of this? From one side, the supply of electricity happens, but on the other side, there is no collection of bills. Yes or no? Right? On one side, the supply of electricity will happen. But do you think the Discom company will come to your home and say, you have put two hooks in the wire like this, and because of that, please, last month you have taken 50 units, pay the bill for 50 units? Absolutely no. They will never be able to know how much electricity you have drawn. So there will be a lot of losses because of this, commercial losses. What about electricity which while supplying will be lost, right? Because the wiring is not proper, right? I'm basically taking you back to your chemistry and physics classes, laws of thermodynamics, right? Electricity is getting transmitted. Don't you think some of the electricity will be lost into environment in the form of heat? Yes or no? Right? So I hope you understand this. So there will be a lot of losses, and all of these put together is referred to as aggregate technical and commercial losses. Okay, aggregate technical and commercial losses, which means energy, that is electricity, is supplied, but for all the electricity that has been supplied, they will not be able to collect the money. Point number one. Second, the discoms are incurring huge amount of losses. Simple. The discoms are incurring huge amount of losses. Why? First one is AT&C losses. Don't you think that will add to the losses incurred by the discoms? First reason. Second reason, look at this technical point now. There are two terms here: average cost of supply, average revenue realized. Average cost of supply, average revenue realized. Meaning what? Average cost of supply means the cost of the expenditure incurred by the supplying company, the company which is distributing, how much money they are spending. And average revenue realized means how much money is collected in the form of bills. Now, have you seen this increasing trend in the states where the state government is announcing free electricity to the farmers? Let me know. Right, in many of the states where elections have been conducted, will be conducted, etc., etc., are you seeing the governments announcing free electricity for the homes, etc.? And in many cases, please understand, the next point is also clear. Apart from the free electricity, next point is very important now. That is, the government, that is the state governments, will decide what will be the tariff price. That is, for every unit of electricity, how much money you are supposed to pay. That is decided by the state government. And the state governments purposely, what they have done over a period of time is, whenever electricity is supplied to the houses, the tariff imposed is lesser than what is the actual cost of per unit of electricity. Is it okay? I hope you understand this. The state governments, when they will supply electricity, they will, let's say, incur a cost of 5 rupee. The Discom will incur a cost of 5 rupee. But the Discom, when they are supposed to collect money from you, the government will ask the Discom to simply charge 4 rupee. That is, the average cost of supply is 5, average revenue realized is 4. Don't you think that will lead to losses for the Discoms? I hope you understand. Don't you think these will be leading to losses incurred by the discoms, right? So that is also one of the reason why there is a huge distress in the discoms. And now have a look at this. Please look at the flow chart here. Make an observation. The distribution company will purchase electricity from the generation company, sell it, generate revenue, and pay the money to the generation company. What if the distribution company is itself incurring losses? Think of it. What if the discom itself is incurring losses? Do you think they will be able to make timely payment to the generation company? Let me know. Do you think, right, the discom will be able to pay timely payments to the generation company? No. And if the generation company doesn't receive the payment on timely basis, what will happen to their payment for coal suppliers? Don't you think they will delay the payment to the coal suppliers? And coal suppliers may not supply coal to them. It has actually happened in the last couple of months. Type it in Google, you'll realize it. And another issue is, what if this generation company has taken the loan? What if it has taken the loan from the bank? Don't you think that loan repayment will also be affected now? Right? So that is basically the issue here. The whole system will get stuck up. And there are some of you who are saying, sir, if the state government announces free electricity to the farmer, don't you think the state government will pay? Of course, the state government will pay, my dear. But please tell me, do you think the state government will always be prompt in terms of payment money to the distribution companies? Let me know. Do you think state government promptly they will pay money to the distribution companies? Absolutely no. You can check it. Absolutely no. State governments always delay the payment. Always they will delay the payment. Which means again, distribution companies will delay the payment to the Genco. Genco will fail, right, or will feel the burden of the delayed payments. Done. So that is basically the distress in the distribution companies. Okay. Next one is fuel adequacy. Next one is fuel adequacy. Now, what is the concept of fuel adequacy here? In case of India, we require coal. For solar energy, we require panels. For nuclear energy, we require nuclear reactor. Also, we require nuclear material. Now, tell me, all of these are sufficiently available in India? Let me know. All of these, do you think are sufficiently available in India? What about coal? We import lot of coal from the rest of the world. Because the quality coal that is required for power generation, we do not have sufficient reserves, we import. What about solar panels? Lot of solar panels we import from our best friend China. What about nuclear reactor? We are asking Russia to give nuclear reactor. We are asking France to give us nuclear reactor. We are asking USA, can you construct nuclear reactor in India? What about nuclear material? We are dependent even on the nuclear material to other countries. That is basically, right, inadequate fuel availability in India, which will basically increase the import dependence. All of this will increase what? Import dependence. Done. Next one, cross subsidization. Cross subsidization. What is this idea of a cross subsidization? Have a look at this. I've discussed this. We'll basically repeat it again. The distribution company, the discom, will supply electricity, let's say, to a house, right, or let's say to a farmer. And on the other hand, it will also distribute electricity for a commercial enterprise. Commercial enterprise. Now, when the distribution company will supply electricity to the house, they will charge lower amount of money. And when they will supply to the commercial enterprises, they will charge higher amount of money. This is basically the concept of cross subsidization. Did we discuss the same concept of cross subsidization in the context of railways? Do you remember that? In the context of railways, did we discuss the same thing? That is, on an average, they are supposed to charge, let's say, 4 rupee. For some, they will charge less than 4. For others, they will charge more than 4. Apply the same logic in the distribution company. Cross subsidization. Now, many of you ask me, sir, why? What is the problem if there's a cross subsidization? Please tell me, if for a farmer, and if for a farmer, I'm providing electricity at a very, very low price, in many states, 0 rupee, do you think farmers will be utilizing electricity efficiently? Don't you think they'll keep on, right, using electricity whenever it is available to them? They'll keep on using, they will irrigate the whole land. And what will happen to underground water level? Underground water level will fall down. That is one of the concern that the India's agriculture sector is facing. Right, that is one problem here. Okay, cross subsidization. Energy security. In case of India, how many of you believe that even today we have 24/7 uninterrupted supply of electricity? Let me know. Right? How many of you believe that we have 24/7 uninterrupted electricity supply in India? Absolutely no. Even today we are facing issues with this. Right? In most of the cities, in most of the times we will be able to get access to 24/7. But even today in rural India, it's not 24/7 even today. That is basically the issue of energy security. Done. And many of you ask me, sir, any problem if there is no energy security? My dear, look at the larger picture here. Please look at the larger picture. Right? If there is no energy security, don't you think production in industries would be affected? Think of it. Production in the industries would be affected. What about the social activities? For example, the children want to read after they come back from the school. But in the evening, there is no electricity in the house. Don't you think learning abilities will also be disrupted because of energy security? Right? That is the basic idea. So energy security is also a concern in case of India's electricity sector. Okay? Any problem with whatever we have discussed so far? Any issue? Power grid is an agency. Simple. Power grid is an agency which will transmit. Transmit means move the electricity. For example, in some of the states, we have higher capacity of production. Right? Can you imagine this? Just imagine this. Don't you think wind energy production in southern states will be very, very high? Let me know. Right? Does it make sense to you or not? Geographically. Right? Think geographically. Don't say, sir, geography is not over. Right? At least you know the map of India. Right? So, because the coastal region, right? Coastal region, wind flow is very, very high here. And right, production of electricity, if it is higher in case of these regions, some regions, right, we will move the electricity from one region to another region, just like food grains. It's not difficult. You remember the concept of food grain movement, right? You replace the food grain movement with electricity. That's it. Right? We are producing electricity in one place and then we are moving the electricity. That is transmission. Okay, done. So what are the steps taken by the government of India? Right? What are the steps? What are the measures which have been taken by the government of India? Let's start. First one, RDSS, Revamped Distribution Sector Scheme. Right? A revamped distribution sector scheme, RDSS. Government of India, that is a center now, has implemented RDSS. Now there is a reason why this is called as a RDSS. Earlier, Government of India had implemented a scheme by the name of Ujjwal Discom Assurance Yojana. Ujjwal Discom Assurance Yojana. So this was implemented earlier. Under Ujjwal Discom Assurance Yojana, Government of India wanted to address the issues faced by the distribution companies, and in order to address that, allowed the state governments to borrow from the market. I repeat, to borrow from the market, use it to make repayment of the loans which are owed by the discoms to the banking sector. Can you understand this sequence here? Here is the distribution company owned by the state government. It has borrowed from, let's say, a bank. But because the DISCOMs are in loss, they are unable to repay the loan. So instead of this DISCOM, the state government will issue bonds in the market. These were referred to as Uday bonds. These were referred to as Uday bonds. So the state government would issue Uday bonds in the market, borrow from the market, and repay the loan to the bank instead of the distribution company. And under that, right, under the concept of Ujjwal Discom Assurance Yojana, certain targets were given for the distribution companies to achieve. For example, they were supposed to reduce AT&C losses, aggregate technical and commercial losses. They were supposed to bridge the gap between ACS and ARR, that is average cost of supply, average revenue realized. But these targets were not met. That is the precise reason in 2020, the time period of Uday was over. Government of India said, let me discontinue Uday. Let me not extend the time period. Let me discontinue. And the government now introduced one more scheme by the name of Revamped Distribution Sector Scheme. Now, what is the speciality about Revamped Distribution Sector Scheme? Follow the discussion carefully. Under this, Government of India has given a target of reducing AT&C. The AT&C for these distribution companies will have to be reduced to the range of 12 to 15%. And they are finding it very, very difficult in India. Even today, the average is somewhere around 18 to 19% on a very high level. The gap between ACS and ARR must be reduced to zero by 24 and 25. Now, please understand, earlier also targets were given. Now also targets have been given. But what is the difference? How this RDSS is different compared to Uday scheme then? Now Government of India says, every state government has to give me annual targets. Simple. Every state government will have to give me annual targets. Right? For example, imagine you are the government of a state. For 2023, your target was reducing AT&C to, let's say, 17%. If you achieve this target, only then central government assistance will be provided. Simple. If you achieve these targets, only then central government assistance will be provided to you. If you do not achieve, central government says, sorry, you gave a target, you only gave the target to me. You are not able to achieve the target. Why should I provide you any assistance under the scheme then? So whatever assistance government is planning to give to the state, that would be stopped. Can you understand the importance of RDSS now? Can you understand? It will improve the quality, reliability, affordability in power supply to the consumers. Many of the earlier schemes, such as IPDS, again simply by added, Integrated Power Distribution Scheme, the DDU-JJY, right, Deen Dayal Upadhyay Grama Jyoti Yojana, right, etc. All these schemes have been brought under the RDSS itself now. Okay, so this is one scheme. Second, PM Saubhagya, Pradhan Mantri Sahaj Bijli Har Ghar Yojana. PM Saubhagya, Pradhan Mantri Sahaj Bijli Har Ghar Yojana. Now, what is this PM Saubhagya Yojana? Government of India says, will identify those houses which do not have electricity connection. Will identify those households which do not have electricity connection and will provide the electricity connection free of a cost. I repeat, will provide the electricity connection free of a cost. Now, if you're thinking, what is this electricity connection? Please ask your parents. Right? Many of you will not know this idea. That is, imagine you are constructing a house. You need electricity connection. You will have to, right, file an application, pay certain charges. Only then the people will come. They will provide electricity connection to your home. Without paying the charges, you are not supposed to get the electricity connection. That is called as theft. Don't say, sir, anyway, pillar was there in front of my home. Right? Very long pillar, cement pillar, very sturdy, very strong pillar. I purchased wire, pillar was there, I connected it. That is called as electricity theft. If you want to get electricity connection, that is a meter is installed, wiring is done, you'll have to give an application, pay certain charges, and then the connection is provided. Now, don't you think this payment of charges itself will become a burden for very poor houses? Think of it. Right? Don't you think the payment of charges itself will become a huge burden for poor houses? Those who are saying no, imagine a house where only one person is earning the income, 8 people are dependent. Manrega houses, right? Farming houses, right? Large number of dependents, 1 or 2 people are earning the livelihoods. Right, so that is a precise reason for some of the houses, even 500 rupees will be a very, very huge burden for them. And don't you think that was one of the reasons why many people earlier did not open bank accounts? Of course, there were no charges in the bank accounts, but minimum balance. Remember the concept of minimum balance. MAB, minimum account balance. In case of minimum account balance, earlier, the bank used to simply say, if you have a debit card, you have a checkbook, then 1000 rupee you will have to keep minimum balance. If you don't keep 1000 rupee, I'll keep on charging you. Right? Look at the irony. Imagine the amount you have kept in the bank account falls to 950 rupees and you will also not be aware of it. I'll tell you why, how it happens. UPSC will not ask you, but many of you will be worried about it. Imagine there is exactly 1000 rupee in your bank account, say SB account. Bank has issued a checkbook, they have issued a debit card, they will charge you something called as a debit card charges, cash handling charges, and they will deduct it from your bank account. They'll simply deduct it from your bank account. Suddenly what will happen, without you realizing that the amount has fallen down, it will go down to below 1000 rupee. And the moment it will fall down to below 1000 rupee, the bank will realize it. They will keep on charging amount after amount when the amount is less than 1000. Right? So less than 1000, it will go down to 950, 900, 870. Right? Again and again, it will keep on falling. But again, don't worry about all of this. But don't you think Government of India has brought in Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana precisely for this reason? Right? Precisely for this reason. That's basically idea. Okay. Right. So PM Saubhagya Yojana, under this, free electricity connection will be provided to poor houses. And which is the nodal agency for the implementation of this scheme? REC, Rural Electrification Corporation. REC, Rural Electrification Corporation. It is the nodal agency for implementation of the PM Saubhagya initiative. Okay. So this is the second initiative. Third initiative, right? LED program, Ujala. LED program, National LED program, right? Ujala scheme. Any concern? But sir, connection free, not electricity. So Manrega households still have to pay. Yes, connection is free of a cost. Government is not saying we will give electricity free of a cost. Connection is free of a cost. Okay. And those who are asking, don't you think that will become, the payment itself will become a burden for electricity connection? Many of the state governments, have you not seen, providing up to 200 units free of a cost for such houses? Let me know. Right? They will simply identify the households as LIG, low income group houses. Right? Yes or no? So many states will identify such houses and provide up to certain number of units free of a cost so that the burden will be lesser for them. Okay? Done. Next one is Ujala, that is Unnata Jyoti by affordable LEDs for all. Right? This is also a national LED program. Now, what is the basic idea? We have the bulbs right now, incandescent bulbs. We will replace those incandescent bulbs with right LED bulbs. Right? That's the reason you must have seen all the houses now, or most of the houses in India today, have shifted to LED bulbs. The street lights, we have shifted to LED bulbs. The offices have shifted to LED bulbs. And the reason is very simple here. LED bulbs are much more efficient in terms of energy consumption. That is, because they consume less amount of electricity compared to a normal bulb, the electricity bill for the houses automatically will be lower. Right? And that is the precise reason Government of India has been promoting adoption of LED bulbs through the initiative called as National LED Program. And for this implementation, there is a special purpose vehicle, EESL, Energy Efficiency Services Limited. It will promote usage of LED bulbs, and more than 36 crore LED bulbs have been distributed so far. Do not buy at this number because this is from last year. I'm pretty sure today itself the number will be different. By the time you write the exam, it will be much higher. Next one is a promotion of renewable energy. Government of India is promoting renewable energy now. Right? That is, Government of India initially said, I want to achieve 175 gigawatts of renewable energy in India. Yes or no? 175 gigawatts of renewable energy in India by 2022. And we have not been able to achieve this target. We have not been able to achieve 175 gigawatts of renewable energy. But anyways, Government of India stated now, rather than having 175 gigawatts, now we will promote it to 500 gigawatts. We'll more than double it to 500 gigawatts by 2030. This was announced last year itself by Government of India during the Glasgow conference. From 175, now we have committed that we will have 500 gigawatts of renewable energy production capacity in India. Right, so that is one more promotion of, let's say, one more scheme to promote renewable energy capacity in the domestic market. Done. So these are some of the steps or initiatives that have been taken by the government in order to promote electricity sector in India. Any issue? Can we go forward? Any issue? Let me know. If there are no concerns, no issues, I will go forward. Okay. Next, what is renewable, my dear? You should read that, right? Have you forgotten your basic geography discussions? What is renewable energy? Right? What is renewable energy? The source, renewable means the source of which is not going to exhaust. I mean, renew means what? The source will not get exhausted. The source will be available to you. That's a reason that is called as a renewable energy. Okay. Now, next concept I want to discuss is railways. How many modules are left out of economics? My dear, we are discussing infrastructure. After infrastructure, we need to discuss employment. We need to discuss one international organization, IMF, as well as one more that is inclusive growth. Right? There is one more chapter that is left out, employment. Right? That is basically the second one is inclusive growth, third one is IMF. That will be right basically the coverage. Okay. Next one is railways. Next, I want to discuss the concept of railways. Now, point number one, railways is a departmental undertaking or a ministerial undertaking. Any problem with the point number one here? Let me know. Indian Railways is a ministerial undertaking. That is, there is a ministry within the part of Government of India, and that ministry is controlling what will happen in the Indian Railways. That is in charge of operating Indian Railways. Point number one. Point number two, India has the fourth largest railway system in the world. Don't buy heart it. Why? From one year to next year, the rankings will keep on changing. But generally, India will be in the top five. Generally, India will be in the top five. Right? So, USA, Russia, China, India, these are generally considered to be superpowers in terms of having railway connectivity, the length of railway connection. Okay, so India has the fourth largest railway system, railway connections in the international market. Now, railways can be divided into two parts. Railways can be divided into two parts, or there are two components in the railways. One is a passenger component and the second one is a freight. Freight is nothing but movement of goods. Is it okay? Freight is nothing but movement of goods. Right? One is a freight component and the second one is passenger component. So these are some of the basic points regarding the concept of railways in India. Beyond that, do not buy at how many railways are there in India. Waste of your time. Do not buy at what is the total length of a railway network in India. That will never remain constant. It will keep on changing. Do not buy at right how many railways will run from east to west to east, top to bottom, bottom to top. Waste of your time. Simply understand what are the basic concepts. If there is anything in the current affairs, please read about it. That should be more than sufficient for UPSC. Okay. Now, what are the issues in the railway sector? What are the problems in the railway sector? Let's go point by point. First one, the proportion of freight transportation in the railways has declined. What do you mean by this? At the time of independence, generally, right, most of the transportation that was done in India was done through railways. Is it okay? At the time of independence, most of the transportation of goods that took place in India, that was done through railways. And there was a practical reason for it. The Britishers focused and developed a very good railway system across India. And because we had a very good railway system across India, most of the transportation of the goods was done through railways itself. But over a period of time, what has happened is the road network has taken more and more of the freight movements, that is a goods movement, and percentage of goods which is transported through railways has actually declined. Right? As per the government of India's estimates itself, somewhere around 27% back in 2020. Pretty sure now it will be slightly bigger than that. Back in 2020, somewhere around 27% of the total freight transportation in India was done through railways. Back in 1950, it was more than 80%, 90%. I hope you understand. Right? More than 80%, 90% back in 1950s. Today, it accounts for only around 27%. Whereas the road sector accounts somewhere around 55 to 60%. The transportation through the roads of goods is 55%. Whereas in case of railways, only 27% of the goods are transported. So what has happened? Why over a period of time, railways has a lost out percentage and roadways has gained in terms of percentage? These are the following reasons. Point number one, over a period of time, the road network in case of India has improved. Yes or no? Anybody has a problem with this? The investment in the road network, etc., has improved in India compared to at the time of independence. But do you see the same kind of improvement even in the railway network? Think of it. Most of the railway lines that we are using in India today were laid down during Britisher times. The same system we are using. So, whereas on the other side, road network has increased leaps and bounds in India. So, obviously, right, the road network is much more improved now. Lot of connections have been provided. So, companies prefer using road mode compared to railway mode. First reason. Second reason, if you want to transport through railways, you will have to go through railway officials. Has anybody transported their bike or good through railways? They would have experienced a horrible thing here. Horrible experience. That is, government officials are there. You will have to approach government officials. You want to become government officials. And I'm pretty sure all of you know how cordial, how helpful these government officials will be. They'll say, right, where are the documents? Right, this document is missing. Please get that document. Where is the photocopy? Right, how do I know that you are the owner of the bike, etc., etc. So there is a lot of issue in terms of dealing with government officials here. Okay, right, there is a lot of issue. They do not, the people, or let's say the companies, do not prefer to go through railways. This is one of the reason. Second reason is, you want to move a good through railways. Okay, you want to move the good. So first and foremost, what you will have to do? You will have to pack the product. You will have to pack the product, take it to the railway station, right? Provide documentation to the government officials, submit, they will move the packed product. Now somebody has to be hired to load that into the railways, that is a railway coach, and it will reach a station. Again, you will have to hire someone in that city to receive the product, move the product into the godown. Can you see how many points we are handling the product? I hope you understand. At how many points we are handling the product. This is called as a handling point. I am providing a packaged good, then somebody will load it, then it will move to the railway station, somebody will offload it, and somebody will put it again in the truck, it will move to the godown, somebody will, right, again put it in the godown. Multiple handling points. And when there are multiple handling points, can there be a possibility of damages? Can there be a possibility of theft or losses, etc.? Answer is yes. Right? In fact, couple of months ago, this was there in the news. Check it later. I'm pretty sure the video will still be there in the Google only. In one of the stations, the goods which were received, right, in a railway bogie, the people who were offloading them, right, they were keeping them on the right platform, they were simply throwing them. The goods were not being handled very carefully, they were simply picking up and throwing the goods like this. It will be there, I'm pretty sure it will be there in the YouTube, later check it. So handling points are multiple, possibility of a damage, possibility of theft. On the other side, you want to move the good through roadways. You want to move the goods through roadways. Right? Don't you think multiple companies will provide the services to you? Right? The logistics companies, they will say, sir, I will do this. Right? He is going to charge you 4 rupee. I will charge you 3 rupee. Right? Etc. Etc. Don't you think competition is very high in the road sector? Railways like a monopoly. In road, private sector is present. So they will come, right? They will compete with each other. They will provide better services to you. And one more point, compared to railways, don't you think in the roadways, handling points will be very, very less? Handling points will be very, very less. So these are some of the reasons why over a period of time, the freight transportation through the roadways has increased and in railways, it has decreased. And what is the problem with the freight transportation decreases? Don't you think it will have a direct impact on revenue generation capacity of the railways? Yes or no? It will have a direct impact on revenue generation capacity of the railways. And that is the reason majority of the times or in many, many years, railways in India have incurred large amount of losses. On one side, you are not able to generate revenues through freight. On the other side, you are providing subsidies, implicit subsidies to the passengers. So how will you be able to generate revenue? But on the other hand, expenditures will keep on taking place. Second one, low passenger to freight ratio. That is basically cross subsidization. Cross subsidization is followed in India. That is when a passenger is purchasing a ticket and a freight is being moved, the charges imposed on a passenger will be very, very less. On a freight, the charges would be very, very high. As a result of this, what will happen to this ratio? What will happen to this ratio? This ratio will keep on falling down. Right? That is basically low passenger to freight ratio. And in case of India, generally the passenger to freight ratio is somewhere around 0.2 to 0.3. Whereas in case of many other countries, it is more than 1. The passenger to freight ratio is more than 1. Meaning what? In many other countries, the railway passengers are imposed with more tariffs, more charges compared to freight transportation. That is a very important source of revenue for them there. Okay. Third one, private sector participation is very, very less in railways. Why? Historically, Government of India through a ministry has been controlling railways in India. Simple. Historically, what has been observed? Government through the Ministry of Railways has been controlling the railways. Who will operate railways? The ministry. Who will propose new projects in the railways? Ministry. Who is going to invest in the railways? It is majorly the government. So if everything is done by the government, what should be the participation of the private sector? That is the reason, if you remember earlier, I've told you, private sector is not interested in all the projects in India. All the sectors, no, they are interested in only few of the sectors. This is one of the reason. If government interference is very, very high, government does everything, why will private sector participate in the sector? Okay. High operating ratio. What is the meaning of operating ratio? It is also referred as OR, operating ratio. Expenditure incurred for generating revenue. Expenditure, how much expenditure you are incurring to generate revenue. Let me ask you a very simple question. Think of it and answer. Example 1, railways is incurring expenditure of 90 rupees to generate revenue of 100. Example 2, railways is incurring expenditure of 98 rupees to generate revenue of 100. If you are the prime minister, if you are the railway minister, would you prefer example 1 or example 2? Would you prefer example 1 or example 2? Arey Baba, I was about to say thank God like this. Because all of you said example 1. By the moment I said thank God, 3 people said example 2. My dear, example 1 is much better compared to example 2. Can't you find basically the idea here? Can't you understand the idea? You're spending 90 rupees to generate revenue of 100, right? According to you, this is bad compared to spending 98 rupees to generate 100 rupees. Do you think example 2 is better? No. In example 2, you're spending more money. Example 1 is much better. Now, please tell me, operating ratio, if operating ratio is 98%, 99%, do you think this is good? Let me know. Right? If the operating ratio is 98, 99, 103, 104, do you think this is good? No. In fact, I'll give you a break in some time. Right? In another couple of minutes, I'll give you a break. Once I give a break, please do me a favor. Go to Google and type operating ratio for railways. You will get a latest information. It is more than 100. It is more than 100 now. Very recently, it was there in the newspaper. It is more than 100, which means we are spending more money, and compared to that, we are generating lesser revenue. Right? So, operating ratio in case of India's railways is higher, which is putting a lot of pressure on the finances of Ministry of Railways, which it will basically impose pressure on Government of India. Okay? So, these are some of the issues faced by the railway sector. Railways sector. Some of you are saying 98%. 98% was there until last year. Please check the latest data. Please check the latest data. I'm pretty sure it is more than 100. Okay. Okay. So if you have any questions, please do let me know so that we can address the question. Then we can take a break. So recent railways disaster shows the level of railways in India. Okay. Again, a very unfortunate situation. Very unfortunate situation. Prepaid electricity connections are being a burden for poor houses? Not necessarily, because again, like I said, government is also providing, right? The government is also providing basically subsidies there. Sir, why do government have funding model? Why not loan at a cheap or minimal rate of interest? Right? The argument is, I need not support all the infrastructure projects. I hope you understand. Government doesn't need to provide support to all the infrastructure projects. If Government of India reduces a rate of interest, will ask the banks to reduce the rate of interest, it means all the loans will become cheaper. You want that? No. Rather than that, we'll identify specific projects and will ensure that only for these specific projects I will provide assistance. Okay. What is subscheme 1 and subscheme 2? I'll repeat it again. What Government of India has done is, the scheme for viability gap funding for PPP projects. In that scheme, they have divided the projects into two groups. They have divided the projects into two categories. One category is called as a subscheme 1, where 60% of total project cost would be provided. Another one is subscheme 2, where up to 80% of capital expenditure would be provided. And what if project is more feasible and the player generates a revenue more than the funds provided by Government of India? What will happen next? Give me an example. Give an example where the investor has invested and more than expected profits have been generated by the investor in PPP projects. All these are just hypothetical situations. All these are hypotheticals, right? You are simply assuming that this might happen. Historically, what has happened? It has not happened, right? You generally don't get so much amount of profits. Sir, what is IIFL crisis? What is IIFL? I believe you're asking about IFSL. It's a very old concept. It was an NBFC which was basically investing, borrowed market investing, right? There was misgovernance. Don't worry about that. it is like Larsen and Toubro's RRT's projects in Delhi NCR. Is it based on HAM? Again, you'll have to check the specific project. Again, don't worry about specific projects. UPC will never ask you about specific projects. Right? Show me an example where UPS has asked, okay, Delhi Metro, is it a PPP? If yes, which company is involved? Not required, because thousands of PPP projects are there. You'll not be able to remember all the thousand. Sir, why the railway tickets are cheaper than the road transport? My dear, government wants people to pay lesser amount of money, especially general class, because one, railways is the lifeline. Lot of people use railways for as a mode of a transportation. Second, lot of poor people will not be able to afford the rates if the market competitive rates are kept. Okay. Okay, done. Let's take a break now. Let's take a break. So 7. Okay. So 7:23. Let's have the discussion again. Right. 7:23. Okay, welcome back. Am I audible? Can we start? Done. Let's start. So, what reforms have been implemented by the government in the railway sector? First one is a bullet train project. First one is bullet train project. Now, bullet train project has been proposed, and we are in the process of implementing the bullet train project. Bullet train will basically run from one city, basically two cities, major two cities, industrial cities. That is basically the industrial city of Ahmedabad and Mumbai. It will be connecting these two cities, and these two cities will be connected with six, let's say, stations. There will be six stations like this, and two cities would be connected. And this is basically the bullet train project. For the implementation of bullet train project, the amount of investment that is required is more than 1 lakh crore rupees. More than 1 lakh crore rupees. And most of this more than 1 lakh crore rupees we have borrowed from another country, that is Japan. The country of Japan has provided a soft loan. Soft loan simply means where there is a lot of flexibility in terms of repayment. So majority of this more than 1 lakh crore rupees we have borrowed in the form of soft loan from another country, that is Japan. Now, what are the benefits of this project? Let's do a critical evaluation. What are the benefits? Point number one, it will be a new technology which will be introduced in India. We do not have a bullet train right now. It will be a new technology, right, which will be introduced. Point number two, right, the time taken for commutation. How much time is taken for movement between these two cities? The time consumed would automatically go down. As per various experts, even the government of India's document, right now the time taken to migrate between these two cities is somewhere around 8 hours. And with the implementation of the bullet train project, this will be coming down to around 2 hours. Right? So time taken for commutation will also be coming down, reducing the chances of migration. Now, what is this reducing the chances of migration? Let me give a very simple example. Now, have a look at this. Imagine this is a city and you are living outside the city. Your office is one part of the city, in one corner of the city. Don't you think most of you, rather than day to day, right, rather than moving every day like this, which will consume lot of time, what you might simply do is you will enter into the city, purchase a home or buy a flat, take a house on a rent, etc. You will move within the city itself. Yes or no? Right now, what is the problem with all of this? If more and more people enter into the city like this, do you think the city will have sufficient infrastructure to handle so much of population? Let's say, do you think city will have sufficient road connectivity? Do you think the cities will have sufficient hospital infrastructure? Right? What about housing infrastructure? What about water supply? Don't you think there will be a lot of pressure on the infrastructure that is there within the city? Now, rather than this, what if I say you can easily take a bullet train and reach this particular place in 20 minutes? Tell me now, right? You can easily take a bullet train, right? There is a stop here, right? You can easily reach your office in 20-25 minutes now. Don't you think the chances of migrating into the city will be addressed? Yes or no? It will become easier for you. The chances of migration will be, right, reduced. And apart from this also, if these kind of projects are implemented, don't you think offices, rather than getting concentrated within the city, will start moving out of the cities? Think of it. Rather than moving into the cities, don't you think offices will also start migrating out of the cities? That is, if easy mode of a transportation is available, easier mode of a transportation is available, why should the offices get located within the city? They can get even located on the periphery or outside part of the city. Right? That is also going to be one of the advantages of these kind of projects. It will decongest road mode of a transportation. That is, if bullet train is not there, for example, metro, please think of it. In those cities where metro, right, is developed, metro is operating, don't you think some of the vehicles on the road, right, the number of vehicles on the road are lesser because of metro train? Think of it and let me know. Right, the number on the road, that is the vehicles on the road, could have been much higher. Right, if there was no metro train, it could have been much higher. But because there is a metro project, don't you think the congestion on the road to a certain extent would be addressed? Again, I'm not saying that there is no congestion. Do not misunderstand my statements. I'm not saying there is absolutely no congestion. I'm saying if there was no metro, everybody would have taken road. Now, because there is a metro, some of the people, rather than taking the vehicle going on the road, don't you think they will take metro? So the number of vehicles on the road automatically will come down because of that. Okay, so that is decongestion, road mode of a transportation. Okay, so these are some of the benefits which are attached to the concept of a bullet train project. But having said so, are there any concerns? Of course, yes. How can you simply say everything is right, well and good? There have to be certain concerns. What are the concerns? One, cost of the project. The one biggest criticism regarding this has been the cost of the project. Look at the cost of the project, 1 lakh crore rupees, more than 1 lakh crore rupees. And it was just an initial estimate, around 1.11 lakh crore rupees. By the time the project is over, it will be much bigger than 1.1 lakh crore rupees. So don't you think for only one project, this is too much of money to invest upon? I hope you understand. Again, this is a criticism, right? We have discussed what are the benefits, but I'm telling you criticism now. Only for one project, we are spending 1.11 lakh crore rupees. That's a very huge amount. Criticism or concern number two. If government is going to spend so much amount of money to create one infrastructure project, what will be the ticket price? There is no clarity regarding this. What will be the ticket pricing? Because if the ticket prices are very high, premium pricing, people will not use bullet train. I hope you understand. That's a concern now. If ticket prices are higher, people will not use bullet train. In fact, many people will simply say, I will pay extra 1,000 rupees and I will fly, because there's a premium feeling associated with that, rather than traveling in a train. But on the other hand, if government will keep the ticket prices very low, do you think government will be able to recover their investment? Forget about making profit. Will they be able to even earn sufficient amount of revenue? So that is a concern now. What should be the ticket pricing? Third one, land acquisition. Right, land acquisition. One of the reason, because when the project was proposed, by 2023 we were supposed to start operating. I hope you understand. By 2023 we were supposed to start operating. Did we start operating bullet train right now? No, there is no operation of bullet train because the project is not even complete. We are still struggling to acquire land only. We're still struggling to acquire land, right? So acquisition of the land. Now there is one more problem. Supreme Court of India, right, is intervening in many of these cases, infrastructure project. In one of the pastures where it was supposed to pass through certain ecologically sensitive area, Supreme Court said, no, we will not allow you to cross on land, go underground, which will basically increase the cost of the project. So all these are certain issues related to only one project here, that is bullet train project. Right now, don't you think? Again, right, don't make it political. Please do not make it political. Keep it only economics. Right? Don't you think, looking at the cost of the project, the same amount of money we can use to improve the safety and security of whole Indian railway system? In fact, this was discussed when the project was announced. Right? If you look at the same amount of money, can you take it and develop the whole railway system, safety in the whole railway system? Of course, the answer is yes. Right? So again, these are some of the concerns which have been raised against the bullet train project. Now, another important reform that has been done by the government of India is merger of railway budget, not bullet train, merger of railway budget with union budget. Earlier, the practice was simply, it was a practice, convention, that couple of days before the union budget is presented, they will recommend or they will basically come out with railway budget. And after that, economic survey was published and then the union budget was announced. But over a period of time, government of India now says there is no use of a separate railway budget. There is no use. Why? It is not a constitutional requirement. Back in 1924-25, because of a committee recommendation, Ackworth committee recommendation, we started a separate railway budget. And even after independence, just as a convention, as a practice, we have continued it. So why should we continue it if it is not a constitutional mandate? And moreover, the size of the railway budget is very, very small compared to union budget. Size, that is how much money is spent in the railway budget, is just a fraction of the union budget. And even the railways compared to road sector have been losing significance, right, in terms of freight transportation. Citing many of these reasons, Government of India has taken the railway budget, merged it with union budget. Today, there is no separate railway budget presentation. It is presented as a part of union budget itself. Right? So, this is another very important reform. Third one, government, in order to promote safety, has also implemented various reforms. For example, Setu Bharatam project. Setu Bharatam project. Now, what is this idea of a Setu Bharatam project? Right? Many of the times you must have read in the newspaper, not the recent one, earlier also. Many of the times you must have read in the newspaper that there are railway crossings. That is, imagine this is a railway line. Right against this railway line, there is a road crossing as well. There is a road and there is a railway. This is basically a railway crossing. And many of the times what has happened is, right, when the vehicles are crossing the road, right, when the vehicles are crossing, the trucks, right, the buses, etc., the railways have come and hit these, right, vehicles as such. So many instances have happened in the past. Now, in order to improve the safety, Government of India under Setu Bharatam project has proposed that we will simply have railway overbridges or railway underbridges. That is, we will not have railway crossing like this. Railway line as well as a road, it will not be touching physically. Either we will take the railway, we will construct a right overhead bridge so that the railway will cross over the roadways, or we will construct an underpassing like this so that there is no physical connection, physical contact between the railway line as well as roadways line. Right? That is a Setu Bharatam initiative. Next, private sector is also allowed now to operate trains. Right? Please understand, private sector is allowed to operate trains. Government has clearly stated we are not privatizing railways. It's not a complete privatization of railways. Some of the railway routes, government wants private sector to operate those routes. I hope you understand my point here. Government clearly says we are not privatizing completely the railways. No, right? We have identified only some of the routes. I want private sector companies to operate trains in the routes and pay me certain amount of money. That's basically the idea of allowing the private sector to operate trains in India. Now have a look at this. What are the benefits of right this kind of an initiative Government of India? And are there any trains which are operating by private sector now? Of course, yes. In many cases, the private sector is actually operating trains in India, right? That is specifically the tourist trains, right? Some of the tourist places, the trains are being operated by private sector now. Now, what is the advantage? What is the objective with which Government of India has introduced this system? Let me explain this. Point number one, if you want to operate trains, you will have to purchase the railway bogies, that is railway, right, dabbas. You will have to purchase an engine or manufacture them, which means money is required. Simple, money is required. Government of India says, rather than me spending money to have these railways, I will ask the private sector to invest. Simple, I will ask the private sector to invest. So now tell me, if a private sector will invest, right, a lease or purchase an engine, start operating a railway route, don't you think Government of India's expenditure will come down because of this? Yes or no? Right? Government of India's expenditure will not be made, but private sector will invest. Right? So government is ensuring investment is done, but not governments, but private sector investment. So point number one. Point number two, if government sector will invest and operate, generate certain revenue, will provide certain amount of revenue sharing, will provide certain amount of revenue to the Government of India. look at the beauty of the system. Without investing in the railways, in these routes, government is able to generate revenue. Point number 2. Point number 3. If private sector will start operating, don't you think the quality of services, the punctuality of the railways will improve, which will provide benefit to customers? Let me know, which will provide benefit to customers. So customers, we are also getting the advantage. For the private sector, Government of India says, I will not interfere in ticket pricing. You decide the ticket prices. You simply decide the ticket prices. I will not interfere there. You will have the right to decide ticket prices. So don't you think even the private sector will look at the model and say, I will invest, so I'll start investing because I want to earn profit. So all the three participants here, government, private sector and passengers, the whole objective is that all the three participants should get the benefit of the model. Government will get the benefit because they are not investing, their expenditure will be lesser, but they are earning revenue. Private sector says government will not interfere, I have the right to decide the ticket prices, so I will make certain profits here. Customer says if private sector will start operating, automatically the quality of services will improve, I will also enjoy the benefit. All the three stakeholders are expected to benefit from this model. But having said so, private sector is not shown so much of interest in this model. I'll repeat it again. Having said so, is even as of now, only few private sector companies are operating the trains. Private sector largely has stayed away from this model. And the reason that has been given by the private sector is the kind of investment that we are supposed to do is very, very high here. I hope you understand. The amount of investment that I'm expected to do in this sector is very, very high. But I don't have clarity regarding how many passengers might come. Right? What should be the actual ticket pricing, etc., etc. So the risk component is very higher. So we would simply stay away. Right? That is the reason very few of the routes that were proposed by the government are actually were auctioned. Right? Private sector companies participated, very few of them, and they have started providing the services. Done. Right. So this is one more discussion regarding a reform implemented by the government in the railway sector. Next reform, National Rail Plan 2030. NRP, National Rail Plan 2030. Now, what is this concept of a National Rail Plan 2030? Government of India says, again 2020, please understand this. 27% of total freight transportation is done by railways. We want to increase it to 45% by 2030. By 2030, we want to increase it from 27 to 45. Next, we want to become a net zero emitter by 2030. Right? And don't you think you have come across the term net zero very often in the context of Government of India? Government of India says India will become a net zero emitter by 2070. Carbon neutral country by 2070. Right? What do you mean by net zero emitter? You are emitting right on one side, but you're also implementing certain reforms to absorb them. Very simple. You're implementing certain reforms to absorb them. For example, right, have a look at this. Government of India in the railways is promoting harnessing solar energy. It is promoting harnessing solar energy. For example, you have seen railway stations. Right, if you have seen the railway stations, generally you will see the railway station that is platform like this. Right, if this is a platform, right, there will be pillars like this, and above the pillars, right, basically you will see the slanted roof like this. Yes or no? I'm talking about one angle. You're standing in the platform like this. If you look at the platform, you will see vendors, right, one after the other, and you will see the slanted roof like this, and railways will come and stand like this. Now, what Government of India says is, we'll use these slanted roofs and we'll install panels. And they have done it. We'll simply install solar panels all along the length of these, let's say the platforms, so that we can harness the sunlight, right, convert that into solar energy and use it for consumption purposes. And they'll be supplying over a period of time this kind of energy to run railways for any other operations within the railways. So a lot of reforms are being implemented by the government to ensure that railways will become net zero emitter by 2030. Next, to create capacity ahead demand by 2030, and the capacity that we will create will be sufficient to handle any kind of a growth for the demand up to 2050. Any problem here? Till 2030, we are going to add so much of capacity that the demand will keep on increasing till 2050. But whatever infrastructure we are going to create till 2030, that will take care of rising demand till 2050. Right? That is one more point. Next, for the successful implementation of a national rail plan, NRP, railways will be looking to engage with the state governments. It will be looking to engage with public sector undertakings, private sector companies, etc. Which means, right, participation of all the other stakeholders will also be promoted under the national rail plan. Done. So these are certain very important reforms that the government of India has implemented under the concept of railway reforms. Can we go forward? What is point number one? The the freight transportation. As of now, 27% of the freight transportation in India is done through railways. By 2030, we want to increase it to 45%. That is 45% of the transportation of the freight shall be done through railways. Okay. Third point, by 2030, we are going to create so much amount of capacity. That capacity, for example, number of railway stations, number of railway routes, etc. So the capacity that we are going to create till 2030, that will be more than sufficient to handle the demand till 2050. That is the meaning of the third one. Now, next one, roads. Next concept is roads. Anybody wants me to define what is a road? Let me know. Right, sir, what is the meaning of the road? Define a road. Right, I'll simply say road is a mode of a transportation. It is a medium of transportation. Now, in case of India, please understand, road, there is a ministry at the central government. There is a Ministry of Roads, right? Ministry of Roads, Transportation and Highways. Transportation and Highways. Okay. At the central level, there is a Ministry of Roads, Transportation and Highways. In short, this will be called as MORTH. Right. So, Ministry of Roads, Transportation and Highways, it will promote participation of the private sector. It will also promote, right, development of infrastructure through various government agencies and ensure road infrastructure is actually promoted in India. For example, in case of India, I'll show you a data here. Please look at it. Do not by heart it. Have a look at it. Please do not by heart it. Why? This is the length of the road network as of March 2023. Right? Again, whether this is right exactly that or not, don't worry. This is the latest data, that is, which says the total length of the road network in case of India is 63 lakh kilometers. Now, please tell me, will it remain constant by the time you write the exams? That's the reason I'm saying do not by heart it. It's of no use for you. But on the other hand, one data I'll tell you, please by heart. What is the data? Out of the total road network, in fact, the road network that we have in India, it is one of the highest in the world. Out of the total road network that we have in India, right? Generally, if you divide it around 4.8, I'll simply round it off. Around 5% of these roads are highways. Only around 5% of these roads are highways. If you look at the other side, majority of the roads, that is more than 95% of the roads that we have in India are other roads. For example, municipality roads, right? Roads in the villages, roads connecting the villages, etc. So 95% of the roads are other roads and only around 5% of the roads are highways. And even if you look at within this 5%, right, within this 5%, very small percentage of this are actually 6-lane national highways or 8-lane highways. Most of them are 2-lane highways. Can you understand that 2-lane means 2 lanes are there in a highway? And what is the problem with having very less proportion of, right, let's say 6-lane or 8-lane highways like this? Most of the transportation, we have decided that, we have already looked at it. Most of the transportation in India is done through road network. And when you have most of the transportation being done through the road network, most of it is, right, let's say other roads, very small part of it is highways, and within that, very small part of it is 6-lane, 8-lane highways, and large part of it is 2-lane. Don't you think cost of transportation in India will be higher? All I'm trying to tell you is this: the time taken for transportation, the cost that is incurred for the transportation, don't you think it will be higher? Right? That is a precise reason why it is higher in India. Many of you keep on asking, and in the last week, I believe I've shown you one article also, right, regarding, I'm sorry, this week itself, cost of transportation calculation. There also it was clearly written the cost of transportation through roads, it is 6 times compared to railways. It is 8 times compared to the waterways. What is one of the reason? That is basically the reason here. I hope you understand, right? Reason is very simple. Multiple laned highways are very, very less in India. And don't you think now government of India is promoting 6-laned highways, 8-laned highways, 12-laned highways. Best example is Mumbai Delhi Expressway. Right? The best example in the current affairs is Delhi Mumbai Expressway. It's a multiple laned highway, right? That is the reason. Okay. So go back to the features or the issues here. One, in order, one second. Okay. First one, in order to develop the road sector in case of India, the development of road requires land acquisition. And land acquisition for the development of infrastructure is very, very difficult. Land acquisition, you write everywhere. By default, you write everywhere. Okay. Very low proportion of national highways are there in India. And that is a precise reason: time taken, cost of transportation, even accidents are very higher in case of India's highways. Third one, cost of transportation is high. Fourth one, there is a lot of delay in the completion of infrastructure projects. Add that even to the infrastructure project of road. Lot of delays happen. Either the labor is not available, land is under litigation, you are facing problems with respect to land acquisition, it is taking more time, right, etc., etc. Because of all of this, completion of road infrastructure projects is delayed. That will increase the cost of the project. Large part of the logistics is unorganized, that is informal in nature. It is informal in nature. And what is the problem with having informal nature of logistics sector? Let me explain this. Imagine you are in one city, and let's say, right, you are in one city, you have been transferred to another city, let's say, which is around 1,000 kilometers away. Now, please tell me, in this situation, would you want a logistics service provider who has a national presence or a local logistics provider? Think of it, right? Would you want a logistics provider which is a very big company, which has a warehousing throughout India, which has a, right, let's say, large number of right, let's say the networks as such, or you want to use a regional, right, very, very small unit? That is, let's say in your own area, there is one person who says, sir, tell me, I'll bring 4 people, I'll transport. You should prefer a national service provider, not a regional one, national one. Why? I'll tell you. Because you want to move lot of goods across state borders, you require warehousing, you require very good network of right, let's say, logistics company. But in case of India, what has happened is, no doubt logistics is being promoted. Large players, large number of players in the logistics sector are regional players. Very, very small companies, right? They will have, let's say, 5 trucks. They will have 10 trucks, right? These are not going to produce a large number of employment. These are not going to provide services across the length and breadth of India to you. These will not provide warehousing facility across India to you. But don't you think if you're a very big company, you would prefer a national logistics company or a company with a national presence? You'll prefer a company which has multiple hundreds of, let's say, larger trucks which can easily carry, right, the large load. And because these have a larger presence in the national market, they will provide always, they'll try to provide better quality services to you. Otherwise, what will happen? Right, across India, the brand name will be lost. Right, they will become a very brand, a brand with very bad reputation. That is basically the idea of having logistics sector with formalized system rather than having informal system. Right? Any problem with this? Can I go forward? I don't think government of India is trying to address this. Can I give you one example? National logistics policy. Right? National logistics policy. Under national logistics policy, what government of India says is warehousing should be developed. Across India, large warehouses should be developed. And what is the advantage of having large warehouses? Understand the logic here. If you want, let's say, a product A to be moved from, right, let's say city 1 to city 2, would you want to hire, let's say, one truck for it? Or, right, A, B, C, D, E, 5 products will be pulled and one truck will be used to transport the good. Don't you think pooling always will be effective? Yes or no? If you're still finding it difficult, imagine you want to go from city 1 to city 2. City 1 to city 2. Rather than you individually traveling, what if you ask somebody else, 3 more people will come in the same car, assuming they are your friends, right? Not people who will steal it from you, right? All of them will pitch in with, let's say, petrol pricing. Don't you think that will provide benefit to you? And some of you are saying, sir, Ola sharing, just like Ola sharing only. Right, so that is a basic idea. Even in case of national logistics, what we are trying to promote is the same idea. Develop warehousing across India, larger warehouses, so that when you have larger facilities like this, right, from all the areas, right, the goods can be moved into the warehouse. From there, a very big truck can be used to move the goods. Or let's say waterways can be used to move the goods. That will always provide the benefit to you. Done? So large part of the logistics is unorganized. That is basically informal. We need to formalize it. We need to basically make it formal. Okay, so these are some of the issues in the road sector. Let me go to reforms then. Let me go to reforms. First reform, newer models of investment are being promoted. First one is hybrid annuity model. Did we discuss this? Please do let me know. Hybrid annuity model. Is it a new model of investment in India? Yes. Is it being used in the roadways to promote infrastructure development? Answer is yes. Right. So we are using new models of investment to develop road infrastructure, such as a hybrid annuity model. Government is also taking various steps to reduce the cost of transportation. For example, goods and services tax. Right. Please go back to the taxation chapter and tell me, with implementation of GST, are we expecting reduction in the cost of transportation or not? Let me know. With introduction of GST, right, don't you think one of the advantages that we are looking at GST is reduction in the cost of transportation? What about FASTag? All of your vehicles, we have a FASTag now, 4-wheeler, 6-wheeler, 8-wheeler, whatever it is, FASTag. What is the advantage as proposed by the government of using a FASTag? Waiting time. Waiting time at the toll booth will come down. When waiting time will come down, the length of the vehicles, the waiting time for all the vehicles will come down, which means you can travel more, right? If the waiting time will come, if you can travel more, cover more distance, automatically cost of transportation will come down. Does it make sense to you? Let me know right now how FASTag will provide the benefit to you. Right, the waiting time will come down, because earlier what used to happen, you will go stop at the toll booth, you will fight with the toll booth first, that the person who is there in the toll booth, reluctantly you will take out cash, give it to him or her, they will start counting change, right? They will tear the receipt, give it to you, they will give the change. Now you will count the change. Your CSAT is very weak, right? You will ask your friend to open the calculator, right? He will open the calculator, she will open the calculator in the smartphone. They will count it, right? They will also make a mistake. So time taken will be very high. Simple. Rather than that, you have a fast tag. You will go, right? There's a technology, near field communications technology, right? Scanning, they will scan it, right? Automatically the money will be deducted and you will pass through, right? So argument is simple. Time taken will go down, length will also go down. You can travel more distances now, and as a result of this, right, the cost of transportation will go down. Now, logistics has been given infrastructure status. Logistics sector has been given infrastructure status. Now, what is the importance of having infrastructure status? Let me explain. Whenever any sector is given infrastructure status, point number one, they will be allowed to borrow from long-term investors in the market. I'll repeat it again. Whenever, right, the sector is given infrastructure status, please tell me, right, before I go forward, did we come across the term infrastructure status earlier also? Let me check. Let me check how many people have revised. In which chapter? In which area did we come across it? Food processing. Those who are thinking where we have come across it. Food processing. Specifically in food processing where? Cold chain infrastructure. Cold chain infrastructure. In cold chain infrastructure, one of the reforms I told was the cold chain infrastructure has been given infrastructure status by the government. Which means what? Now they can borrow for longer duration. They can simply borrow from long-term investors in the market. Second, they can also go to the international market, borrow at lower rate of interest. Do you remember the concept of external commercial borrowings? ECB, let me know. They can borrow from external market. Third one, there are also various agencies in India, institutions in India, which will provide long-term loans to you, such as India Infrastructure Financing Company. You can also become eligible to borrow from such financial institutions. So whenever any sector, any industry is given infrastructure status, these are the benefits attached to it. Done? Right? So this is another set of reform. Next one. Next one, the new logistics division within the Ministry of Commerce. Within Ministry of Commerce. In the Ministry of Commerce, in 2017, Government of India created one division by the name of Logistics Division. And what is the importance of Logistics Division here? Please understand. Until now, until 2017, we did not have any division, any office which will look at only logistics sector. I'll repeat the point here. Until 2017, there was no specific office or the division or the ministry which focused only on the logistics sector. So in 2017, there was a division within the Ministry of Commerce which was right named as a logistics division. What will be the importance? What will be the advantage of this logistics division? This logistics division will study and give recommendation to the government if there are any problems in the logistics sector. If any policy of the government is creating problem, is creating a hurdle for the logistics sector, recommendation, advice will be given to Government of India. Right? It will also recommend, right? It will also identify certain issues and it will recommend improvement in the existing processes or procedures or policies of the government. It will also recommend introduction of latest technology in the logistics sector. So these are certain very important objectives, citing which Government of India has created a new division within the logistics sector, and this is expected to work under these parameters. Done? Can we go forward? Any issue? Can we go forward? Last point in previous slide. My dear, there is an institution by the name of India Infrastructure Financing Company. Type it in Google. There is an institution. It is an institution which will provide long-term loans. Look at the name itself, you'll understand. Now, if any sector is provided with infrastructure status, they become eligible to borrow from this institution. And what is the importance of it? Let me ask you a very simple question. You want to purchase a car. Can you borrow from India Infrastructure Financing Company? Let me know. You want to purchase a car, you want a personal loan. Forget about car also. You want to take a personal loan. Can you approach India Infrastructure Financing Company? If somebody says yes, then I'll ask you, what do you mean by infrastructure then? Right? If you want to take a personal loan, is it for infrastructure? Of course, no. Right? So in the name itself, it is there. It is an institute which will provide loans for infrastructure development. Right? And infrastructure loans are generally long-term loans. That's a basic idea. Okay? Done. Furthermore reforms, road connectivity. Government is implementing an initiative by the name of Bharatmala Pariyojana. Right? There is a scheme by the name of Bharatmala Pariyojana. Under the Bharatmala Pariyojana, Government of India wants to construct 34,800 kilometer length of road network. What kind of road network? They want to target coastal roads, they want to target border roads, etc. So under the Bharatmala Pariyojana, 34,800 kilometers length of these kind of roads will be constructed by the government. Now next one, Bhumi Rashi portal, very famous now. Right, very important reform. So far UPSC has not asked a question on this, but you be very careful. Bhumi Rashi portal. Now this Bhumi Rashi portal, right, is an initiative of Ministry of Roadways. Right, MORTH. Don't ask me what is the long form of MORTH. Now, first slide of roads sector, I've written the long form of it. So the Ministry of Roadways has set up this initiative by the name of Bhumi Rashi portal. What is the objective? What is the importance of Bhumi Rashi portal? Let me explain it to you. Until now, until the Bhumi Rashi portal was established, imagine a road has to be constructed. Okay, a road has to be constructed. That's a proposal. What the Ministry of Roadways used to do is, they would prepare a file. This file will be sent to Ministry of Finance. They will send it to Ministry of Finance. Why? Money is required. So first they will get the approval of Ministry of Finance. Now the same file will also be sent to various other ministries. For example, if this road has to be constructed nearby forest, they will send it to Ministry of Environment and Forest. This road has to be constructed in urban part of India, Ministry of Urban Development would be approached. Which simply means, all I'm trying to tell you people is, the physical file would keep on moving from one department to another department, one ministry to another ministry. Now, don't you think this process is a time-consuming process? Very lengthy process. And in order to get all the required approvals, it could take multiple months. So what Government of India, that is Ministry of Roadways, has done is, they've introduced a new system. That is a Bhumi Rashi portal. In Bhumi Rashi portal, what the ministry does is, rather than creating a physical file, they will create a digital file. Simple. They'll create a digital file. That is, a digital copy is created. And at the same point of time, all the required ministries and departments will receive access to the file. Right? All of them will receive the access, will get the access to the file. Now, don't you think because of this, they will get the approvals from all the ministries much faster? And once they get the approvals, imagine my land is being taken away. Government has to provide certain compensation. Yes or no? If some of my land will be taken away, government has to provide compensation to me. That list of the beneficiaries, that will also be created online. Advertisement will also be done online. That is publication, that road will be constructed, land survey number, etc. This is what we are doing, etc. Everything will be done online. And when you're doing the whole process, you have shifted this to the online system. There will be transparency in the system. Accountability will increase. And the time consumption for the whole process automatically will come down. Look at the government document itself. After launching the portal, The processing time for land acquisition that was weeks to months earlier has been reduced to 2 weeks now. We have actually reduced this to just 2 weeks, which is basically a reform which has been implemented in order to make it easier to acquire land, in order to get all the approvals much faster by the government itself. Done? Right. So this is basically the idea of a Bhumi Rashi portal. Okay. Now next, the port sector. Next I want to discuss is the port sector. But before that, let's take up questions. Let's solve the previous year questions. If the time permits, we can come back and solve the discuss the remaining concepts. Let's start. Okay, 38% have answered correctly. Why? It should be higher. Which of the following would include foreign direct investment in India? FDI. Subsidiaries of companies in India. What do you mean by subsidiaries? I think yesterday I've told you. A foreign company will open its own company in India. No joint venture, nothing. Right? For example, Accenture will open Accenture in India. Subsidiary, completely owned by whom? Accenture USA. So first one, is it FDI or not? Of course, yes, it is FDI. Second one, majority foreign equity holding in Indian companies. 51%, 49%. If 51% is owned by the foreign company, can I simply say this is nothing but majority equity hold, right, by the foreign company? Yes or no? If anybody has a doubt, please do let me know right now. If 51% in a joint venture is with the foreign company, can I simply say this is nothing but majority foreign equity holding? Company is exclusively financed by foreign companies. I give you example of this. Uber company, I said. Foreign banks will operate through this model itself, I said. That is, they will not open companies in India. They'll simply set up office and keep providing for the employees' expenditure. That's it. Right? That is also FDI. Right? What about the fourth one? Portfolio investment. What about the fourth one? Portfolio investment? No. Right? Portfolio investment is FPI, not FDI. 1, 2, 3 are correct. Right option is option D here. But sir, Indian company also have subsidiaries like Reliance, Jio, will it be FDI? My dear, Indian company opening a subsidiary within India, how can it be foreign direct investment? Tell me, how can it be a foreign direct investment? Something has to come from the foreign market, right? Something has to come from the foreign market, right? Where is the foreign market investment here? First option, my dear, portfolio investment. This is very bad now. Very bad as far as I'm concerned. Portfolio investment. Portfolio investment, is it not part of FPI? Is it not part of FPI? Arey Baba, you're simply wasting time. Okay, next one. 50% have answered correctly. Why? Both FDI and FII are related to investment in a country. Which one of the following statements best represents an important difference between the two? FII helps bring better management skills and technology, while FDI brings only capital. Not exactly vice versa. Let me know. Exactly vice versa. Right? FDI will bring management skill, technology. FII will simply bring in capital. So A is wrong. FII helps in increasing capital availability in general. FDI only targets specific sectors. Statement B is correct. This is what we have discussed yesterday. Right? I said FII will simply bring money into India. That's it. Whereas I said FDI, government will decide in which sector it will be allowed. Yes or no? Right? So option B is correct. FDI flows only into the secondary market, while FII targets primary market. Is it true? We have discussed what is primary and secondary market. Do you remember? Primary and secondary market. Don't you think FII can target any market? FI can simply target primary market also. FI can target secondary market as well. Right? So C is wrong. What about D? FI is considered to be more stable than FDI. Anybody who says, right, D is correct. FI is more stable than FDI. In fact, if you remember yesterday, I've told you this. I said, if Fed tapering happens next week, foreign investors from the market will run away from India. And I said, FDI will try to stay in India for a longer duration because they've invested, they've created infrastructure. So option D is also wrong. Right option is option B here. Okay. Next one. This question is slightly difficult. You'll not find the answer to this even in the book. I'll tell you, don't worry. Try it, I'll tell you. Okay, 46% have answered correctly. Others, don't worry. Some of you would get stuck up because of certain terms. Please don't worry, I'll explain this. Foreign currency convertible bonds. First and foremost, all of you remember the concept of convertible bonds? Let me know. Do you remember the concept of convertible bonds? I've discussed this under financial market. In fact, it is there in the slide. Please have a look at it. Convertible bonds are nothing but where these are issued as a bond, but after certain time period, these can be converted into shares. Yes or no? These can be converted into other form of securities, that is shares. That is basically convertible bond. Now imagine here is an Indian company. It has issued a bond outside India. It has issued a bond, let's say in USA, and because it is issued in USA, let's say it is given in the form of dollar, foreign currency. But this is a convertible bond. Convertible bond means what? Let's say after 2 years, this bond will become share of the company. This bond will become share of the company. Now, is it as good as saying investment in equity? Let me know. Is it as good as saying investment in equity? And because this is nothing but the equity, please remember, RBI says foreign currency convertible bonds will be counted as a part of FDI. Is it okay? Foreign currency convertible bonds will be considered as a part of foreign direct investment. Right? That is the first one. Second, foreign institutional investment with certain conditions. Many of you look at the first part of the statement, foreign institutional investment. But generally what we say is foreign institutional investment, when they invest in the stock market, it has to be counted as FPI. But look at the second part of the statement. Please look at second part of the statement. Do you remember yesterday I've given you one example, right? Or one, let's say, definition given by Arvind Mayuram committee. And in that definition, I told you, if a foreign investor will purchase, in fact, I remember the number, I said 7% in the shares of a company, that is 7% equity of the company. Technically, this should be classified as FPI. But if the foreign investor says that in the next 12 months, if they will increase this to 10% or above 10%, then this 7% will be counted directly as FDI, not as FPI. Did I discuss this? You can open the PPT, right? Open the annotated PPT. You will see I've written the same numbers, right? So now tell me, foreign institutional investment with certain conditions, can it be counted as FDI? Is it okay? Can it be counted as FDI? Again, the answer is yes. What about global depository receipts? Global depository receipts, FDI? Yes. Right? Non-resident external deposits. These are deposits. Sir, what is this? Non-resident external deposits. Right? Again, understand this. First and foremost, non-resident means what? Imagine you'll go settle down in USA. Right? You will go settle down in USA. You're a non-resident now. Yes or no? You're a non-resident. But even by virtue of being a non-resident, RBI says you can bring money and invest in the banks. That is, you can keep deposits in Indian banks. This is called as non-resident external deposits. Now, please tell me, is it an investment in a company? Are you purchasing shares here? Are you purchasing equity? This is a deposit, simple deposit. It's not an investment in the equity. So fourth one will be wrong. So 1, 2, 3 are correct. Right option is option A. 1, 2 and 3. Again, I'm saying slightly technical, difficult question. I know that, but practice, practice, practice. Okay. Justify the need for FDI for the development of Indian economy. Why is there a gap between MOU? MOU stands for Memorandum of Understanding. MOU stands for Memorandum of Understanding. Why is there a gap between Memorandum of Understanding and actual FDI? Suggest remedial steps to be taken for increasing actual FDIs in India. Right? A very typical question of UPSC, that is, multiple components are there. Multiple components are there. Now, what is the basic idea for Memorandum of Understanding? Imagine you are a foreign investor. You want to invest in Uttar Pradesh. Let's say you want to invest in Uttar Pradesh. You will sign an agreement with the state government, which is called as a Memorandum of Understanding. I hope you understand this. Nothing difficult here, nothing technical. You will sign an agreement with the state government that you're going to invest in this sector, etc., etc. That is called as Memorandum of Understanding. But generally what happens is, lot of MOUs are signed and some of them will never be implemented. The foreign investors will sign the agreement, but they will never invest in the project. They will simply withdraw from the MOU. Right? The question is about that. Justify the need for FDI in the development of Indian economy. First question. Why is there a gap between MOU signed and actual FDIs? Second question. Suggest remedial steps to be taken to increase actual FDI in India. 3 questions. The difficult nature of this question is that it's not just one question. There are 3 questions here. In 250 words, you're supposed to answer, right, for 3 questions. Anyways, introduction, just give 1 or 2 lines of FDI. That's it. What is FDI? Define it. Now, what is the need for FDI? What is the need for FDI? Do you remember the merits of FDI? Advantages associated with FDI? Throw all of those merits here. Simple. Take the advantages of FDI or the merits of FDI, throw them here. It will promote employment. It will promote competition. It will promote investment. It will reduce import dependency. You can start exporting, etc., etc. Dump all the merits of FDI here. Now, why there is a gap between MOU signed and actual implementation? The reasons are simple. Imagine you're a foreign investor. You will sign the agreement with the state government. Later, you will realize that in the state, skilled labor available is not available. Skilled labor is not available to a very great extent. Or second, it will become very difficult for you to acquire land in the state. Third, you want multiple government approvals. The state government machinery is very slow. Lot of corruption is there. Don't write corruption in UPSC, but right, it's a very slow machinery, etc. Now, please tell me, just because you have signed an agreement with the state government, will you go ahead and implement the project? Let me know. Just because you have signed the agreement, will you go ahead and implement the project? You will simply say, no, I want to look at other state. I want to look at another country. That is the precise reason, right? The agreements are signed, but the implementation, right, may not be done. These are the reasons. These are some of the reasons. So what is the way forward then? What should be done? Because there is a third part of the question. Suggest remedial steps. What should be done then? Right? You can promote a concept of single window clearance as we have in special economic zones, as we have in NIMZ, etc. So we can have a single window clearance system, right? We can promote a skilled labor availability. We can also reduce the tariffs, make the taxes much more favorable to the foreign companies, right? Make changes in the labor laws so that we'll be able to attract them, etc. So these are some of the recommendations that you can provide in order to promote or attract more and more investments in a domestic market. Okay. Next, there is a question, but just have a look at this. There's a clear acknowledgement that special economic zones are a tool for industrial development, manufacturing, and exports. Recognizing this potential, the whole instrumentality of SEZs requires augmentation. Augmentation means consolidation. Discuss the issues plaguing the success of SEZs with respect to taxation, governing laws, and administration. A simple question to you. Did we discuss what is the model of SEZ? Let me know. Did we discuss what is the model of SEZ? Yes. Did we discuss what are the issues plaguing SEZ model? Yes. Did we discuss Baba Kalyani committee recommendation? Again, the answer is yes. Consolidate all of them. Simple. Consolidate all of them. Put all of them in 250 words. That's your answer. Why SEZs are important? Investment, employment generation, export potential, contribution to the GDP. What are the problems faced by the SEZs now? Right, a pandemic, right? The incentives which were given under MAIS, ACS have been withdrawn. Land acquisition, acquired land is being unutilized. Approvals are given by the center, but investment is not flowing. All these problems we have discussed. Then what is the way forward? How do you address it? Baba Kalyani committee recommendations. Your way forward will be Baba Kalyani committee recommendations. Right? So that is basically the answer to this question. Okay. Now, so these are some of the descriptive questions which have been asked on the investment models as well as the MCQs. Now, before I wind up the discussion for today, if there are any issues, any concerns, please do let me know so that we can have a discussion, then we can close the discussion today. But sir, having logistics at national level leads to only big player due to investment. How to address income inequality in this case? As we need more, okay, please understand when I say we need to have national players, I'm not expecting one or two players. We are expecting consolidation, formalization of these right smaller units, right? Growth should happen. They should expand their market base, become national players. I'm not saying let's have only one or two players, right? Let's have multiple players. Okay. But sir, railways ticket prices go up by the private player. What about poor people? If you have seen, please check it. Please check online the railway ticket prices, which are operated even by the private sector. The private sector ticket prices have not been increased by a large margin. Only a small percentage change has been done by the private sector. Okay, you can check it. You can check it. That's a fact, by the way. Sale of land and building where entire consideration has been received after completion certificate is issued or after its first occupy. Again, how it is connected to what we are discussing? Let me know. You are asking a question on a real estate. You're treating me like a real estate agent, a broker in the real estate. Occupation certificate, clearance certificate, all of that, right? Where in UPSC is required? How to revise economics, right? How many times we have discussed this? Okay, you'll have to keep on updating current affairs every once, let's say once in 15 days, once in 7 days. Keep on revising these concepts. Can you repeat non-resident external deposits? Non-resident external deposit. Point number one. It's a deposit. Deposit is kept where? In a bank. And these deposits are kept by whom? These are kept by non-resident Indians. Simple. Non-resident Indians are allowed to keep deposits in the banking sector in India. But these are deposits in the banking sector. These are not equity investments. So these are neither FPI nor even FDI. Okay. I didn't get why discourage switch challenge model, because there could be corruption. Don't write corruption. There could be, let's say, the lack of transparency in the system. It could promote corruption in the system. But government always gives less interest than bank. Private sector loss opportunity cost if they give it to the bank. Again, I do not understand the question. Why should we avoid writing corruption? My dear, you want to be part of the system. Don't say corruption directly. Say transparency will not be there. Right? Become very, very diplomatic in that. Right? Say there will be less transparency in the system. Okay. Can state-sponsored roadways logistics be a solution to supply chain? No. State, I don't think so, will be efficient enough to manage so much complexity in the roadways. Okay, done. So let me stop the discussion today here. Tomorrow we'll continue with the discussion. Don't worry. Tomorrow we'll continue with the discussion from the port sector. So take care. See you. Good night.